Beyond Binaries, Understanding Sexual Identities and Queer Rights Issues in India. Day 4. Namaste and greetings. I, Samriddhi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #webpolicylearning. Today, we are gathered here for day 4 of Beyond Binaries, Understanding Sexual Identities and Queer Rights Issues in India, an online international summer school program, a 5-day immersive online certificate training course. This program is organized by the IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC. This program has an excellent panel of experts who will be sharing their expertise for this 5-day immersive online certificate training course. Our chair for this program is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting research, distinguished professor, IMPRI. The distinguished panel includes Maya Avasthi ji, Dr. Kaustav Padmapati ji, Sonal Gyani ji, Rituparna Nyog ji, Dr. Aksa Sheikh ji, Aru Akun ji, Vikramaditya Sahai ji, Professor Mala Ramanathan ji, Professor Pushpesh Kumar ji, Mr. Adhiraj Parasarthi ji, Professor Veena Vaswani ji, Vajayanti Vasanta Mogli ji, Dr. Pratiti Burman ji, Harish Iyer ji, Rituparna Bora ji, Dr. Debulina De ji, Dr. Debashish Mitra ji, Dr. Lavanya Arun ji. The convener for this course is Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI. A warm welcome to the course Beyond Binaries, Understanding Sexual Identities and Queer Rights Issues in India. Your active involvement in this program highlights the critical importance of engaging in open and meaningful discussions surrounding sexual identities and queer rights. By exploring these topics together, we can deepen our understanding, challenge societal norms, and work towards fostering an inclusive and equitable society for all. Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey. We have shared the study materials and course outline via email on the topic related to beyond binaries for better perusal and understanding. Before we start today's session, I would like to announce the housekeeping rules. It is imperative that you join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee, and ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Our theme for day 4 is legal and right dimensions. Our session for day 4 will cover topics of transgender and horizontal reservation, litigation and advocacy in India by Vajayanti Vasanta Mogli ji. Queer Identity and Rights, Experiences from Assam by Dr. Pratiti Barmanji, Queer Rights at the Workplace by Harish Iyer ji, Linkages of Sexuality and Gender with One Development Issue, Concepts of Sexual Norms and Sexual Hierarchy by Rituparna Boraji. Now, without any further ado, let us start the program. It is my honor and privilege to invite the chair for the program, Professor Vibhuti Patel, to start the program with her opening chair remarks. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, the mic.
Thank you, Samriddhi, for this. I would like to begin with thanks to the IMPRI team, Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Vithita Jha, Vaijanta Mokli, Naina Agarwal, Avastha, Samriddhi, and welcome today's panelist, Vaijanta Vasant Mogli ji, Dr. Pratiti Burman, Mr. Harish Iyer, and Rituparna Bora ji. Previous 3 days were very interesting. From the first day, we had a clarity and the conceptual clarity, historical legacy, and the whole unfolding of the existential struggles of the queer community. Day 2 focused on attempts at mobilization and the various agencies, state and non-state actor, how were they responding to the LGBTQIA community. Day 3 went into further details and expanded and deepened the discourse on queer studies by bringing in relatively unexplored dimension, because majorly the focus has been on identity. But yesterday's experts, Dr. Samara Ramanathan, problematized conceptual and operational issues in visibility of queer population in statistics indicators, and data sets. She stated that without enumeration of whole spectrum of queer community, their needs and demands will not figure in policies, programs, schemes for social security and social protection. She highlighted that data collection should be governed by inclusiveness, precision, autonomy, and right to privacy and confidentiality, no identifiers and parsimony. Professor Pushpesh Kumar was the next speaker, who made a theoretically dense and historically rooted and chronologically ordered narrative encompassing last 2 centuries of existential struggle of LGBTQIA communities and their incarceration since the 19th century British rule and the USSR in USA during the Cold War period. He cited works of queer theorists of New Left and cultural studies moving, such as Michael Foucault, Gail Rubin, Eve Sedgwick, Judith Butler, David Halperin, and Rosemary Hennessy. He also reflected on Alexandra Kollontais' writings and Hedy Hartman's paper, The Unhappy Marriage of Marxism and Feminism Towards a More Progressive Union. He critiqued elitism and commercialization of queer culture in neoliberal capitalist system of the 21st century that leaves out intersectionally marginalized ethnic and religious minorities, Black and Dalit persons within or persons with disability within the queer community. The third speaker was Dr. Adiraj Parthasarthi, who discussed in great detail issues of queer mental health with special focus on aging, substance abuse, access to education, health, employment, and cultural resources. He quoted the study of Shakuntala Devi ji conducted during the 70s of closeted cis gay men who told her in interview that without marriage, there won't be any social status for gay men. The same attitude continues till now, even among the psychiatrists who treat SMM and MSM persons. He also accepted that Mental Health Act 2017 is queer inclusive, but it is not implemented. The act is not implemented in most of the states in India, and hence awareness generation about queer mental health concerns is extremely important. The last speaker yesterday was Professor Veena Vaswani, who in her highly engaging and ethically charged presentation, she demanded the need for transformation of Homo economicus to Homo ethicus. He said that discrimination, stigma, negative behavior, dehumanizing attitudes towards transgender persons are learned behavior due to gender stereotypes that perpetuate the gender binary and heteronormativity. Crimes against queer community can be stopped by assertion of human rights agenda in practice and ethics in research, guided by inclusiveness of queer gender spectrum. All 4 resource persons spoke with passion and commitment to the cause of transcending gender binaries. Today, we have these 4 experts who would, Madam Vaijanti Mowgli, Dr. Pratiti Burman, Sri Harish Iyer, and Sri Rituparna Bora, who would enlighten us on many other nuances of the queer and LGBTQIA community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. With your due permission, now we may start the session. I would like to request Vajanti Vasanta Mowgli ji to take the session forward. Mowgli ji is a LGBTQI plus activist and a founding member, Telangana Hijra Transgender Samiti, Hyderabad, and will be taking the course on transgender and horizontal resolution, litigation, and advocacy in India. Over to you, ma'am. We seem to be facing some technical issues. Yeah, so let's wait for a minute. wait a minute. Ma'am will be here soon.
Can we move to the next speaker? Meanwhile, you can contact me.
Janti is in hospital, some emergency radiation, something going. She'll join at 8:30.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Meanwhile, what we can do now is to have some interactive session. If participants have any
Or
questions,
if the next speaker is there, then we can ask.
I will coordinate.
Madam Prititi
Pratiti ji has not joined. Ma'am, she's not here. I'll try to get in touch. Meanwhile, if participants have any question, we can discuss on the issues. Sanjay, take some questions till then.
Yes, so hello everyone. There seems to be an emergency, some health emergency with our speaker today. We encourage you to ask questions. We have Vibhuti ma'am with us. So yeah.
And even other participants can also. It can be
We can utilize this time, interact with each other. We're really sorry about the inconvenience. It was an emergency.
Yeah.
Yes, we can go ahead with questions. You can
or even intervention is fine, huh? Not only question. Intervention, sharing of experiences. If you have done any research or you have any written about anything reflected, all that can be shared. Yeah. So this is an open platform. Yeah, we can.
Perhaps think it as an open mic, something of that sorts. You could interact. Feel free to unmute yourself or just write it out on the Q&A in the Q&A or the chat box. Let's try to utilize this time we have. Yeah, you can raise your hands too.
Pratiti is joining in a minute. So
okay.
So the next speaker will be joining us in a minute. Guys, we can definitely interact in the.
Aksaji is also here, no? Aksaji is with us, no?
Starting, she joined, not now.
Yes, ma'am. She is.
Yeah. Okay.
A minute, everyone. Ma'am will be the next speaker is going to join us. And I would request everyone again to, make the session interactive. Yeah, Swati ji.
Okay.
Marisport ji.
We have two hands. Swati ji and Marisport ji, please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Good evening and thanks for this opportunity, and it's a wonderful learning for me, and especially I joined for two reasons. I'm teaching victimology, and in the LGBT victimization I need to learn and I need to include certain things. In fact, it's good experience. And another thing, one of my PhD students is doing a research in transgender, trans-inclusive workplace.
Yeah.
So for that, I thought of learning. In fact, I request the organizers. In fact, I have sent a mail also already. My student also. It would be grateful if you please help us to get the data or how much you are experiencing this one, because it's a new venture for us. And in fact, the new things which I have learned, I haven't even read any textbooks, barring few books, because that some books are actually not available. Yesterday, even that books also, which Sauntala Devi related information, which is actually very new to me when I
Yeah.
come to know about Shakuntala Devi, who was given that narratives on LGBT. So it would be grateful if you could help my research scholar also in this regard. And in fact, for me personally, it's good learning experiences. In fact, how that caste related affairs and LGBT movements also having a kind of nexus as well as some kind of say common features. That's actually it was a good approach which I learned. And thanks once again for giving this opportunity, ma'am. Thanks, and I need your support also.
Yeah.
For
Have
this
you
thing.
gone through the readings which we have shared with you? All the
Yes,
authors?
yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, that reading
All
channel
the
prior to this, even I haven't heard. This is what I am saying. It's
Yeah.
wonderful to learn actually these things.
Yeah. Thank you.
Even the studies which you have said, which otherwise it is not available in general search.
Yeah.
Certain studies.
Oh,
In fact,
yeah.
I shared with my student also.
No, but that Hedy Hartman's article, Gail Rubin, they are there in the this thing, no? In JSTOR, you get them. So
No,
the
yes, ma'am.
university
Just but
library.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure, ma'am. Definitely, ma'am.
Your
And
library will be able to give. Yeah.
yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you. Swati ji, you can go next.
Yeah, good evening, and I'm so happy to be here. And I really want to congratulate the team, IMPRI, and under the dynamic leadership of Vibhuti ma'am. I know her personally. The way she conducts everything, it's just amazing. I call it a superhuman computer. Actually, to have so much of knowledge and so much of, I would say, in-depth analysis of whatever we learn through. So every day, I just glued to the computer, not even moving for a minute from the computer, and I'm learning so much from each and every speaker of this 5 days this program. Now I wanted to share one thing that I'm running this initiative Raha for transgender community at Maniben Nanavati Women's College. So this was initiative started as a student-led program research competition which won prize at state level as well as zonal level, and we also represented at the national level which was initiated by Government of Maharashtra. And under this initiative, not only after winning prize, we just completely converted into, we say community work. So me, along with my Raha team members, so my student team, we connect with transgender community in every possible way. So personally, I also visit traffic signal because, at times communicating, because when I started my primary research, the major challenge was to connect with the community because people won't trust you. And because being a cisgender, they will not come to you, they will not trust on you, and they will always impose challenges. Okay, आप क्या करोगे, research करके चले जाओगे, बहुत सारे researchers आते हैं, there is nothing good you are doing for us. So taking that into consideration, recently we have finished one program which I have already mentioned in the first day of our program, that we have conducted digital literacy as well as English language literacy program for those transgender individuals. And today I received one of the feedback that one of the person who was appointed at Netflix, she has won the best employee award. So it's like, really achievement. And I just want to know from this forum that I have come here for two things. One is to understand policy in detail about, to protect their rights. Secondly, to connect with the community. So recently I visited Kashish Festival. I'm trying most of the events, going there, connecting with the community and building the trust factor. But the challenge which I am finding, one very important thing is that, I know it's a gradual process. So when we want to work, we can also raise funds for the programs. When yesterday the speaker was talking about that, employ them, educate them. The only way to empower them is by providing them education. But the thing is, there are so many challenges as we are also experiencing their medical expenses. So they have urgent need to have that money to go for their medical, treatment and surgeries. So at times this need of education and empowerment is somewhere, lag behind. So what can be done, to convince them, okay, why education and why after education and the employment will bring them the long-term benefits. Also interacting with the transgender community who are already working. They're the learned people. I'm also working with those. They are saying it's very difficult to sustain in a working environment. There's a lot of trauma associated because, at various positions they are given and they are being not given those medical benefits. So I really want to understand how policies and how government initiatives can help us to, provide them the support in that case. So if the major thing which I'm looking forward in the upcoming sessions.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And Professor Patel can beat supercomputer also, because in summers computer can go bad. Okay. Ahana ji, you can go next.
Yeah.
Ahana ji.
In the meantime, ma'am, we have a few questions in the Q&A box. If you could answer them.
From there only. Ahana ji, you like to
Ahana ji?
Yeah. Writings on gender, no?
I could read that. Could you suggest any writings on gender by Indian authors?
Yeah, so I think on Indian authors started writing on gender 1980 onwards, you can say that. So I think when it comes to the concept of gender, I would suggest EPG Pathshala. There is a whole section on women's studies. So they are very good because they have 4 quadrants, 5,000 words of essay, reading list, then video lecture, and further and Q&A and multiple choice questions. Other very important source is a e-Gyan Kosh, which in which only Indian authors have written. That is by School of Gender and Development Studies by IGNOU, where it is there. In terms of books and all on the conceptual issues and all, there are the Tejaswini Niranjana or Meera Desai, Maitreyi Krishnaraj. Then we have the Nirmala Banerjee, then Veena Majumdar. All of them have written on different dimensions of gender. But on conceptual issues, you can see, because the very first unit in women's studies or a gender studies or a masculinity studies is on gender. So in that, if you see that there are many Indian authors have written in terms of the lessons or the blocks for EPG Pathshala as well as IGNOU Gyan Kosh, e-Gyan Kosh. Both of them are in public domain. Free, they can be freely downloaded because EPG Pathshala deprivatized the sources. Even IGNOU did it. So 2 years back, even IGNOU's courses are excellent because they're the best teachers of India. They have been involved in the process, and a lot of discussion and deliberation takes place before the block is finalized. No? So these two are very important sources, and they have also given exhaustive reading list at the end of each and every unit. Yeah.
Just to get done with the questions. So now we have a question by Ahana ji, Mukhopadhyay ji. Hi, just wanted to ask, if I wish to go into research in queer studies, what kind of qualifications will I need and what would be the path to it? Yeah, that's a question.
I think, see, which discipline you want to pitch in, whether it is a sociology or political science or legal studies or anthropology, ethnography, or women's studies or gender studies. So whichever department you are, because if you have a bachelor's degree, you can get queer studies is an interdisciplinary subject. There are a couple of universities in India which are offering courses in queer studies. One of them is Tata Institute of Social Sciences. There they have a 1 paper on queer studies. So main thing to qualify for queer studies is to have an interdisciplinary approach. You must have read, yesterday you listened to Dr. Pushpesh, Professor Pushpesh Kumar's lecture, no? Because it was so comprehensive. There were the books which he cited, the sources which he gave had historian, ethnographer, anthropologist, economist, philosophers, ethicists. All these people have contributed in queer studies. The whole Veena Vaswani's presentation was full of based on philosophy and ethics, no, and the human rights discourse. Okay, so I think you have to be interdisciplinary. You can't be bound by your disciplinary straitjackets. So open mind, readiness to interact, critically reflect, read, and then you do your research, and it has to be grounded research based on the experiences So grounded research, you can have either qualitative research, or you can also do triangulation of quantitative and qualitative. So your survey, because as Dr. Mala Ramanathan said, and if you are not enumerated, you are invisibilized. So it is important to enumerate and to get quantitative data. So if you do that kind of a survey research and also back it up with the in-depth case studies, and then you also come up with a triangulation, that is possible. But I think any discipline can pitch in, because we have, even in this panel of 40 experts, we have people from various disciplinary routes. No, I am trained as an economist, entire economics, BA, MA, PhD, and even postdoc. Okay, we have people who are from medical science. Yesterday, Dr. Mala Ramanathan, she has been thoroughly from the beginning till end. She has been statistician. She has even her doctorate and everything. But main thing is that you develop empathy, you develop interest, you start reading seriously, you start debating, discussing, and start doing interdisciplinary research, so that whatever technical expertise your discipline has given you, you are using those skills to unfold to this unfolding reality and to examine the issues in front of you. So here it is queer studies. Yeah.
We have 3 more hands raised. We'll go one by one. Swateji, Surbhi, then Riyaji. Swateji, are you here?
Yeah.
Swatiji asked already. Shatabdi.
Annaji is a gender studies, Indian authors. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, I am here.
Yeah.
Please.
Yes,
Shatabdi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, first of all, ma'am, for conducting such an immersive course. Ma'am, I am a research scholar in English literature. Basically, my area is gender and sexuality studies, and I work on the transgender and women sex workers of Kolkata and all over India. Ma'am, the problem which I face when I used to collect data from the field, or I try to record the oral history of this, there are so many challenges. So, ma'am, in my case, what would be the possible steps or the measures I can collect the data as well as record the oral history of this, so as to make a digital archive of the same?
See,
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, whatever Dr. Mala Ramanathan yesterday told us, no, the trust building. Unless the respondents trust you, they will not confide in you. Okay, so what is your entry point? Are you going there only as a research, or you are going through their union, or the medical services which are being offered, or any NGO that is working, whom they trust? So that is one thing. Second thing, when you talk about the digital archive, how are you going to anonymize your interviews? No, confidentiality, privacy, ethical conduct, informing them, informed consent, and in no way your research should harm. You know, the major controversy that took place during the pandemic was that paper from Harvard University scholars, no, who stigmatized the sex workers. They said they are going to be the locus of the spread of COVID is going to be the red light areas. No, that's what they wrote. And they said that the state will have to regulate the movements in the red light areas, because they are going to, and which created a tremendous stigma, police nakabandi, brutalization of people, of sex workers, complete isolation of sex workers, so much so that even philanthropic organizations refuse to provide them any kind of support. In fact, there would be caveat that our relief kits are not meant for transgender people and sex workers. No, so this kind of research, and there was a major backlash. No, women's organization, health organizations, human rights organizations, all of them, they blasted this paper. I don't know whether it is now in circulation or not, but it had created in 2020. It had created major debate. So this kind of thing, this thing should not happen. That what Dr. Mala Ramanathan yesterday told us about how to go about with both quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis and survey. First of all, trust building is extremely important. So that has to happen. And second one is that how you conduct your research and how you disseminate this research. Is at the end of this research endeavor, is it going to harm the community, or help the community? That question you have to ask, and which is what even Dr. Veena Vaswani told us yesterday, that so many researchers have done nothing but harm the queer community by the kind of findings they have come up with, because they all were all researchers, you have your own values, no? All of us have our own. So it's if we go with our own mindset and if the kind of analysis we do, it can also result in harm. I think Dr. Prasiddhi Barman can tell us more, because she has recently completed so many researches. In fact, even during the pandemic, she did a very important research on the transgender communities in Assam, and it was published by the Urban World. So the process is, how did she go about and how did people trust her when she was conducting the interviews? No?
Right. Two more questions, Surabhi.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, hi, I'm Surabhi here.
Yeah.
I'm a researcher and I also work on policy advocacy issues. So my question to Professor Patel is, if you could shed some light on what are the kind of initiatives and policies on behalf of the government which help in employment of transgender.
Yeah.
And I'm also, concerned a bit about the dignity and non-traditional aspect of employment. So what are the kind of issues which have been accepted very well by the transgender community and which have succeeded?
Yeah.
That would really help.
Yeah. So when it comes to the gender budgeting for transgender community, certain state governments have allocated funds for their housing, education, shelter, skill building, and employment. Tamil Nadu is number one. And second one, Kerala has completed the census of various requirements of the transgender community. They have increased the gender budgets, like overall social sector budget of Kerala is a 40% of the state budget directly goes to the welfare fund. Within that, earlier it used to be 10% for gender concerns. From this year, they have increased to 20%. So it's going to be a major chunk so that they can look after, because these are the 5 important areas where there is a massive gender gap when it comes to LGBTQIA community: education, health, employment, and skill, violence against community, and the decision making and representation and voice. So these 5 areas we need to tackle through policies, through programs, through schemes, and through action agenda by the civil society. If state is doing this, and then non-state actors under the CSR, corporate social responsibility. Another demand is that of a quota, like 2% of the, that's what's demand. Different states have different kind of demands, but generally it's understood, because the overall population of queer community, according to the LGBTQIA community, according to the estimates of the state government, is 4%. So should we ask for the 4% reservation? But currently, like, the consensus is that the 2%, when you give 2% of quota to the reserved seats to persons with disabilities, similarly, you should give it to them. So I think in terms of a policy, one is a quota, second one is a gender sensitization of state and non-state enterprises so that they include them, the inclusive this thing. So many, when it comes to education sector, the way admission forms are prepared, we need to bring changes in the admission form, because there is a name of only boy or a girl and woman and man, but there is no this thing of a third gender, the way 2019 Act talks about. So I think, and that is the reason where colleges and schools are not giving them admission. So I think at that level, we need to do this thing. So far as health sector is concerned, massive sensitization of the doctors, nurses, and the paraprofessionals and the health administration has to be done, because that is the area where massive stigma is there, as Dr. Aksa, as well as Dr. Veena Vaswani told us. So we need to do that. So education, health, employment. In the case of employment, I think most important, because even during the pandemic, so many NGOs started the self-employment program, like the vendors and all. But the social stigma was so high that even when they started their venture, say tea stall or a pav vada stall or vegetable vending and all, people did not go to that. So I think that we have to work at the level of awareness among the community, that this kind of stigmatization should not be, it's not desirable. Yeah.
Harish ji is also going to cover that aspect today. Employment. Ministry of Social Justice also and Empowerment also have the transgender cells, and you can see other central government things there.
And the allocation of over 374 crores for Garimagri, that has also started, which is highly inadequate because the unit cost of Garimagri is very less, it can't cover. So wherever it's possible, they supplement the fund by taking money from the sympathetic corporate houses and all. But it's possible only the big cities like Bombay, Delhi, but elsewhere Garimagris are in bad shape. We need far more effective and targeted fund allocation. Yeah.
Right. So last question.
Thank you.
Now.
Thank you.
Riya Yadav ji, then we move on to Pratiti ji session. Riya, please be brief. Yeah.
Riya. Good evening, everyone. Hello, ma'am. Thank you so much for this session. This is very insightful session, and I am a student. I have just passed out my master's in political science from Delhi University. So, and I have written some research paper, kind of term paper during my master's on related to LGBTQ community. And this session is very, very educative, very, very insightful and very helpful for me. Thank you so much. And one question I want to ask, that what initiatives should be taken to make colleges and educational institution inclusive for the queer community? As I am also a queer, and so I have seen that colleges, even in my university, so we have societies, but these all societies are unofficial. So what should be done to make educational spaces so inclusive for the queer community?
Yeah. Some of the initiatives taken by Bharati Dasan University in Tiruchirappalli or the Mangalore University and the Tezpur University to come up with a gender equity policy, which covers everybody, because all genders are covered. And yesterday, I think Rituparna ji also gave us day before yesterday the example of how Tezpur University has made it gender inclusive. Sophia College conducted like under the gender equality policy, which both NAC as well as the MHRD are demanding. They conducted survey of their 3,000. It's a women's college. 16 of them declared themselves as transgender. And their main expectation from the college was that they should be called by their chosen name, not the name which their doctors or for which they had taken admission of a man or a woman. That's a women's college, so they should not be called as a Pushpa, but he said that I should be called as a Pankaj. Okay, so that has to be there. And second one is the gender neutral toilet. That is a major demand, and even hostel facility for transgender community. And many colleges have changed their name to Women Development Cell has been changed to Women and Gender Development Cell, so that everyone is covered. So these kind of initiatives can be replicated. They are doable. There have been examples of, and quite successfully they are running, and they are, though these queer students are scared of their parents, they have not declared to their parents their identity, but at least in college space, there is a very congenial atmosphere has been created. So it is possible to make it this thing. And if you see the Saksham report, if you also see the UGC's directive, where it is a gender inclusive approach in the educational institution, even the national new education policy, national education policy, if you see that 2020 as well as in 2022, where they are talking about gender inclusivity. So policies are there. Now we have to implement it in our colleges and schools. And PTA meeting, we should discuss this, Parent Teachers Association meeting, which I think Maniben Nanavati College does it. Dr. Swati Partani's college and all, they are doing it.
Yeah. I think we can move forward.
Yeah.
Firstly, thank you, Vibhuti ma'am, for that great session. Short and great session. Moving forward, I would request Dr. Pratiti Burmanji to take the session forward. Dr. Pratiti Burmanji is Associate Professor and Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Assam Downtown University, Pani Khatai, Haiti, I'm so sorry, Guwahati. Dr. Burman will be talking about queer identity and rights experiences from Assam. Over to you, ma'am.
We can see the screen. Yeah. Ma'am, you can
Yes.
go full screen. Yes.
Yeah, screen is visible, yes?
Yes, you can go full screen. Yes.
Yes, I'll do that.
Perfect. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Is it okay?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am. It's perfectly all.
Yeah. Good evening, and thank you for having me. So basically, first of all, let me give a little introduction how I got into this area. I'm not a specialist when it comes to queer issues, but yes, I'm taking baby steps to understand the issues and problems faced by this particular community, and that too in Assam, where I'll be talking about it, like where the visibility is extremely low, like and being a traditional tribal society, and it's a mixture in Assam's context. It is a mixture of people. We have a huge number of population coming from tribal um, uh, ethnicity, and also we have general population, and plus it is one of the states where we have largest minority community in terms of who are practicing Islam. So there are so many things which are there in Assam's context. And when we talk about queer identity and rights, as I said it, when I was growing up, I'm starting with my own experiences. When I was growing up as a child, we could never see transgender people in the public areas or in the open spaces where you can see them or you can interact with them. So for my experience, for the first time, I met a person or a transgender person or a hijra when I went out of my state for my further studies. So that kind of experiences I took, and I went to do my um, higher education, that too in social work. So it opened up the areas which I was not experiencing here as a student. And I did my 11th, 12th up in Guwahati. After that, I moved to Mumbai. So there I got to know, and from social work perspectives I could understand their issues, their problems. And when I came back in my after my bachelor's, and I worked here for a year to get my experience, and then I could see in the year 2000, I could see few transgender people living in the outskirts of the Guwahati city. And I could see 2 3 people in the marketplaces, but otherwise there was no visibility. But after my masters, and when I came back, about another 6 7 years passed, and after that I could see there was visibility happening in Assam, and I could see people are increasing of that community. But I then I became a student of women studies to do my PhD. So all these things have opened up areas, and I could see that there not much studies or much academic work was being done when it comes to the queer identity or queer community in our in the states. So when I started teaching, I talked about these issues with my students, and there were some students who were motivated enough to carry out these studies, and that's how I got into this areas. And that is how we ventured into doing our first study with transgenders or the Hijras in Guwahati city. And we got very handful of people, and it was a challenge for us to make them talk, because as ma'am Vibhuti ma'am has said it, it's very difficult terrain, and how you tread in and how you make the participants of your study to open up their things to you. It was a big challenge for us. So that's how we got into it, and from there, and then we have got into some other studies of gay men in Guwahati city. Again, that was again a big challenge for us. And eventually, where I'm working at this moment, we have got a seed grant project to carry out a research work. We had to really defend it to get it passed from the competent authorities to do a study where we could take more a number of the transgender men, women living in Guwahati city and carry out a study, which is still going on. We are not yet done. So I'll be sharing these experiences from Guwahati and Assam. So if I see the queer experiences when I look back, or when I looked into the historical aspects also, as I said it, there was lack of visibility in the public spaces. Yes, the Marwari community, this community has moved to Assam way back in 19th century from Rajasthan, and there were certain occasions like birth of a child and some auspicious occasions. The group of people were brought for performance and all, and it was a very close kind of a thing, because again, Marwari community, they live separately. It's a clear distinction. They do not mingle with Assamese, so-called greater Assamese society. So that visibility was not there in the open spaces like pan-Indian experiences when we go to other parts of India. However, when we look into the tradition and culture, we can see that there were, some yatras, which jatra we call it in Assamese, and there were mobile theaters where men used, small young boys used to dress up and dance, and they were known as chokras. Then we also had Onkia Bhaunas, which is again a traditional form of drama to spread religious messages, and it was introduced in 16th century by one of the greatest reformer of Assamese culture, Srimanta Shankardeva. So there again, we could see men dressing up as women and taking the role of women. So this was the thing which I could gather from looking into the historical aspects and socio-cultural context of Assam when it comes to the queer community, especially the Hijra community. So when we look into, as I said, it's a like our first, but yes, we are very proud that we could have our first Queer Pride Walk in 2014. And from there, a support group called Hukia came into being. Then it followed by some other organizations like Hobdo, Homonnoy, then Rainbow Home of Seven Sisters. Then there is this particular association, the All Assam Transgender Association. And the organization which are funded by the government are mainly focusing on the HIV/AIDS pandemic and counseling on safe sex. Other organizations which are working with the gay men and the transgender community of Assam. But Hobdo, Homonnoy, and Hukia, they have tried giving the psychosocial help to the people who are belonging to the queer community. So that's happening, but that is again very few people are going there, and not all that, because from my field work and my field study, we could get very few people who were aware of this organization, and or could get the psychosocial help which they need when they are in distress. But however, during pandemic situation, few of the organizations and even some socially active people came together to distribute food items to this, to the queer community or the Hijra community of Guwahati city, but that was lacking in other parts of Assam, because other cities are not that safe, and they do not stay also. Most of them migrate to either to bigger cities. That is my finding has been, either they move to bigger cities, metros, and some of them come back and stay here. Now they have come back, but again they're like in their mid 40s or mid 40s basically, and they have come back after spending quite a large number of years outside Assam. So again the presence is mostly in Guwahati city. Again, people are living at the outskirts of the city, not in the main areas. Again, it's a poverty stricken life they are leading. And when it comes to the meeting points of this group of people, in terms of the gay men, what we could find was that they're having certain locations where they are meeting up, but clubs are also there. But now, most importantly, the apps are there through which they are having some kind of communication going, and they are meeting up. So when this is something I have found from our field study, and when it comes to the problems faced by these two groups of people whom we have interacted with from a very, very close quarter, and it is the family rejection, that there is outright rejection to accept them. If you have gone through my paper, you will see there was, the one person who has been financially helping the family, but still the family is not accepting the person. And they said, you stay there, don't come home. We don't want you to be home. And we feel extremely embarrassed because of your looks and the way you conduct yourself. So that family rejection has been very, very major factor when it comes to this group of people, and the kind of discrimination they are exposed to. People make fun of them, people, the way they behave, and it's very traumatizing experiences at times. And the kind of violence they go through, from their intimate partners and the people who want to exploit them. And in fact, this violence is at times done by the police. Okay, so so this physical and emotional violence is another aspects which we could found. And another aspects which we could found from our study was that the childhood sexual abuse which happened to them, and the rape which happened to them, and these were never been addressed. And the participants of our study always kept mum about it. They never opened up about these incidences to anyone, even if they are going to being part of different organizations also. They have never spoken these things to anyone. So this is something they have shared with us, and somewhere I feel it has a very, very lingering and traumatized experience, which is left in their psyche and their way of life. So this is something hidden, and though they talked, but that is not healing. That healing process never took place in their case. Then as I said it, because of this rejection, discrimination, then the abuse, this has created mental health issues among them, and there is presence of depression and suicidal tendencies, even trying to kill themselves. In fact, which will be published, not yet published. So in my paper where I have read, there was one particular participant. He tried twice to kill himself in his native place, where he was subjected to inhuman torture by the village people, his own family members, where he was forced to get married to someone whom he did not want to get married, that heterosexual relationship which he had to establish because there was pressure from his immediate family. So these are the things which are there. Then another thing which I could see among these participants of our study is that minority stress situation, due to this discrimination, rejection, and internalization of negative feeling. They have internalized these negative feelings, which is occurring to them again and again, and every time they are facing it. And that minority stress, there is a theory, and this theory says that has a very, very negative impact into the lives of this community, especially among the gay men and lesbian women. In my case, I could not, I haven't ventured into lesbian women's relationship and their experiences yet. But in terms of the gay men, we could see these things were happening and they were experiencing on a periodic basis, and they were internalizing these things, and it is creating a kind of stressful situation for them. And stress is yes, stress is good to an extent. It is good, but not always. And when it is becoming too much, it has other repercussions that all of us are aware of. Then another aspect which we could see in our study was the social location of these participants in terms of their gender, class, ethnicity, religion, and geographic location, and their sexuality. It had a negative impact in their whole whole demeanor. And this social location is extremely important, and somewhere this is something creating a kind of a situation for them where they are at times not sure of what to do and how to take forward their lives in the present context. Because the people whom we have, especially the gay men, in their cases, we could see that, the class played a very important role. The experiences of the people who are coming from impoverished situation is very different from the people who are coming from a better financial situation, better income. They couldn't take certain decisions which were not available to the people, to the participants who were coming from impoverished situations. And majority of them are from impoverished situations where you could see the violences, you could see the violation of their rights were happening more in terms of the people who were coming from impoverished background. And here the participants experienced rape in a, that too in a I mean, like one of the participants shared, he was raped in a hotel room by a group of people. When we tried to understand why he did not register a case, he said, I was scared that I'll be questioned for my own likings, dislikings, and the demeanor I'm having, the way I dress up, the way I talk. And that will again lead me to further discrimination, further humiliation. Even the police, I know, because from my friends' experiences, we know that I will not get help, they will not understand, and I might get into more trouble. So why to report? Okay, so this is something happening to people who are coming from impoverished situation. Whereas the person who is coming from a better situation, he can make a lot of decision, he can have better relationships also. Okay, but in other cases it is not that kind of a situation. At times they might they have gone into selling themselves, getting into prostitution. So that is also happening to them because they need to survive. And they another thing is that what they shared is that they prefer to stay in a city like Guwahati or a metro, because you are not known to people, you can have your own space, you can have your own identity. Therefore, though it is risky at times, though they don't have money, they don't have a proper shelter, they prefer to move out. They prefer to move out so that they can have a discrete life of their preferred sexuality, the way they want to lead their life. So this is something again shared by our participants. Another thing which is the religion also, because one of our participants was coming from a religious minority community. So his thing was also like, as I shared, that he tried committing suicide twice. He came to Guwahati city, but he was called back by his family members saying that his mother is in the deathbed. So when he went back, he was forced to get married to a girl. He got married, and that was a disastrous situation. And though he was married, he was staying there. Lot of again abuses happened towards him. So he again came back to Guwahati. He said, I wanted to live my life. I wanted to lead my life. And he came back and he says he's okay here, though he's not that rich. He's earning his daily wages, but he prefers to be here. He doesn't want to go back to his native place. And another thing what we could see was is the risky behavior they get into because of the trauma, because of the rejection, because of the violences they face, and most of our gay men, they say that they don't want to, if they are in a steady relationship, they do not want to use any they condoms to practice safe sex, because again there is question mark into their things like you don't trust us, that trust issue between their partners. So these are the things which are being shared to us. And not only the gay men, even by the hijra or transgender community as well. So this is something which has made us wonder, like, actually does rights apply to them in cities like Guwahati? Do they have a option to get justice, which is so rare? Though we are having so many, schemes are there, as ma'am has mentioned. We have schemes, we have policies, we have different, like where sensitization of the police force has happened. But still, this group of people do not want to go for any kind of help, and they don't want to come out also. They would prefer to have a life of discreet, though there are organization. In fact, one of the two of our participants said it. Yes, the pride walk is happening. We have organizations who are working for our rights, but still I do not feel comfortable, or I feel confident enough to ask for help from this group of people. So there is a kind of suspicion um, among them towards their own community and even the organizations. So that we could see from our participants. But these studies are very qualitative. We had very few number of people, handful number of people whom we have interviewed. So it cannot be generalized. So it's a very lived experiences and their everyday experiences which I'm sharing here, of course with their consent. And so this is the situation of people whom we have got to know through our studies. And another thing which I could see somewhere is that that the identity and sexuality among the transgender community and gay men, it's becoming a challenge, because for them they are scared of discrimination, because they are facing discrimination in every step. So to lead a normal life, so-called normal life, to get married and have a heterosexual relationship, then the lack of acceptance on the family side. So these are creating a challenge for this community. So where do they go from here? So it's a big pressure on them. In fact, one of the participants said that there is a impending marriage, and he is thinking of getting married, because otherwise how will he come up and tell or who will accept him. So he is thinking, but again, that's creating a dilemma in him, whether he's doing the right thing or whether it's a justice to the other person or not. So these kind of challenges are being experienced by the people whom we have talked so far. Then another thing which we could see is like the especially among the transgender community, is the voter card issue and the NRC, that's the National Register of Citizens. Assam is a hotbed of lot of issues, from insurgency to this NRC. It's a volatile situation, especially in 80s and 90s. We had a lot of insurgency issues at that point of time, and many therefore the voters thing is also another aspect, because we had immigrants coming from Bangladesh and all the places. So there are a lot of issues, and what happened to this group of people is that they moved out, as I have mentioned, they moved out to metros to lead their own life, because at times parents also said, they were sent away by their parents, and they will say, there you go, don't come back here. So they had a different life, and when they were coming back, they have assigned a different identity for themselves, and they were not registered uh, uh, in the national register of this thing, where we have about, as per the 2011 census, we have about 11,374 transgenders in Assam, and most of them do not have a voter card. Or those who are having voter cards, their voter card gender is different from the gender they are now at this moment, but they are voting according to that voter card which they have got it way back in when they were here. So this is another issue which we could see, and there were a lot of hue and cry going on that they are not being registered. So this is another issue which we could see among the transgenders. And as I mentioned, lack of support system is the biggest challenge for this group of people, where they cannot confine it to their own family. They do not have that the NGOs, though NGOs are there, they're trying their best to provide, and there are people who have taken help from these organizations, and they have got that particular support also. But somehow the people whom we have interviewed, whom we have had interaction, they felt that these organizations are not doing enough, and they cannot rely on them, and there is always a feeling of helplessness among them. And the as I mentioned, that stress they are going through. So this is something we could experience from these small studies which we have carried out so far. And besides this, the book we have been trying to um, work on, where we have it's an edited volume, where we are coming, as Kostav is one of the panelists here on day one, and me and Kostav, we are working on. We had immense challenges when it was coming to getting this researches done or papers done, where this community is being involved. And many of them, even people who are coming from queer community, backed out from giving papers in this edited volume. And we have spent about 2 years to get just handful of this papers. It is so difficult for a place like Assam, where we can have some academic work going on, research work going on. Even at times, I questioned also the academia of Assam, that why nothing has been done, because we have just started now. What was happening before? Why it was? And I felt there is a silence in the academia also when it comes to uh, covering the issues and problems which are there, um, related to queer community. Somewhere there was a kind of trying to not acknowledging this group of people who were there and who are there uh, in the academia, and not comfortable to talk about it, to deal Even academicians whom we have approached, it was none of them come up with any solid research work. So this is something, as a researcher, as an academician, as a social worker, um, we are facing, we are dealing with. And somehow I hope the small qualitative steps or studies which we are taking will somewhere able to bring about a change in the near future when it comes to the queer community and their rights. With this, I'll end my session. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We humbly express our appreciation for your presence, ma'am, your comments, and the distinctive aspect you offered to the experience. We are truly grateful, ma'am. Moving forward, I would request Professor Vibhuti Patel to provide her remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Pratiti Burman, for a very, very courageous attempt that you have made. I have read the manuscript of your book, edited volume, and even the work which you did during the pandemic on the transgender man in Assam. I think that was published is very important. But what has been the fallout of this research in terms of action? Because we in gender studies, we in women's studies, we believe in both theory and praxis. So in what way has it generated, say, the ripple effect in terms of policy or in terms of actual work with them? And all those who were respondents in your study, have they also come together?
Ma'am, what we have done is, like I said it now, that we have got a seed grant project. So through that, we are trying to reach out to them and provide some psychosocial help in terms of counseling and all. That is our next step. So we are trying to reach out to them through that. As you said, this is our duty to go back and provide some kind of thing. So we are working on that issue. We are still not yet successful because we want to have a counseling center. That is something we are planning to do in from our university. But the response is very low, because the moment we are asking that, would you like to come for that, then they just give a very not a very positive answer when we are talking to them regarding that. But what we are planning to do, if that is not working, then we are planning to work with one of the organization where our students are also working, and so that we can provide a counselor there on a occasional basis to provide the psychosocial help to this group of people. That is our next step. So we are yet to do that, but we are in process. But students are going there on a regular basis in that organization, and one faculty member is also there involved. And next will be that we provide a psychologist to do the counseling part.
Right. Yeah. In the question and answer question box, somebody has asked for your article, but we have already shared that. If you see the reading list, Dr. Pratiti Burman's article published in the Urban World is listed. If you open the PDF file, you will see her study.
They are asking for the gay men article that is yet to be published. That is coming in a book form once it is where Vibhuti ma'am has written the forewords.
Yeah.
She's kind enough to do that. And we are hoping once it gets published, you will be able to read that article.
Yeah. I would like to inform that there are 4 studies done by the LLM scholars of TISS this year on gay men. If you see the D space in TISS, you will get those dissertations. They are very exhaustive dissertations examined from the point of view of legal provisions, no? But there is a socio-cultural, historical analysis in all those 4 dissertations. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The floor is now open for questions from the audience. Yeah. And keeping the paucity of time in mind, I would request Professor Parman to answer them in the Q&A box if possible, ma'am.
Yeah. And the list of articles or the books written by Indian authors, I have listed them. Both the sources I have given the link for EPG Pathshala as well as e-Gyanakosh by IGNOU. You can see in the chat box. Yeah.
Professor Berman, if the participants raise any question, please answer them in the Q&A box. It's going to be visible in the Q&A section down below.
Yeah,
Could
I
be
guess
available.
I have not seen any questions so far, except
Yeah.
that article. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there are any questions,
Surely,
it's gonna be visible.
I'll write back. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. We really
Thank you
appreciate
so much for having
Thank you.
me.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
you,
you.
ma'am. We really appreciate the opportunity to have you as our honored guest, ma'am. We are sincerely thankful. So moving forward, I would request our next speaker, Harish Ayerji, to start the session. Ayerji is an independent policy consultant, and Harish Ayerji will be taking the session on queer rights at the workplace. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Samriddhi. My name is Harish. My pronouns are he or she, and I will be speaking to you about being queer at the workplace. Now, one of the things that I have understood in after joining, so I'm an activist at the workplace. Okay, so I'm not a DEI person who happens to be an activist after work. I am an activist at the workplace, which simply means that right from ensuring that people mention their pronouns to doing all the things that activists do, or rather desire to do, is what I do at the workplace. So I'm going to speak to you about um, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is considered to be very those are emerging fields in HR and in organizations. Those are the emerging fields which are there. And I'm going to speak to you about diversity, equity, and inclusion. While I am speaking about it, are there speakers from other attendees from all across the country, Samriddhi? From
Yes,
South as well?
yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Because otherwise I had a few Hindi examples which I didn't want to share if it was.
No, but they understand Hindi.
I think most of the participants are comfortable with
Okay.
Hindi, but of course, we'd prefer English. So.
Yeah. So there is one there is this what is diversity, what is equity and inclusion. If you've heard this popular song, Hum dono hai alag alag, hum dono hai juda juda. We both are different, we both are distinct. That is diversity. Okay. एक दूजे से कभी कभी रहते हैं हम कफा कफा, which simply means that with each other, we sometimes don't get along with each other. Okay. That is inclusion. Inclusion, people think, most of us think that inclusion is about everyone agreeing with each other, everyone loving each other, living like one family. That is obedience. And obedience doesn't really help any culture, right? So what you really need, of course, you need to follow the overall rules and policies and practices. But what you really need to do is there is no change without friction. Okay. People who are different need to come out and to express their differences. And then despite expressing their difference, whatever that difference may be, it could be a different, you could belong to a caste which is not dominant. You could belong to a religion which is not dominant. You could belong to a sexuality or gender which is not dominant, right? So whatever that may be, and if you are able to express yourself, that's when you're truly inclusive. So people often say that, you know what, we have had 0 human rights cases in our organization. So we are the most compliant. Everyone is very happy over here. That might not be a real marker of anything. Possibly people are just following rules and they're very scared to express themselves the way they are. So I'll tell you about the common challenges that queer people face. I have a few slides to share, but I'll try and make that interesting. Some slides from cinema to share. I'll try and make that interesting a little. But before that, the common challenges that queer people face is one, of course, is very obvious, the restroom challenge. Most organizations, even organizations which are big organizations, I work with Axis Bank right now, and I know that most organizations have only two restrooms, one for men and the other for women. Okay, so that's the biggest. But bigger organizations also have another restroom, okay, because they want to be compliant, okay, not because they care, most of them. Because they want to be compliant, they'll have another restroom for persons with disability. Now, the number of persons with, and when you speak to them about adding the fourth restroom, okay, and this is the resistance that I've heard of in my organization and in other organizations as well. So one of the things that the resistance that we hear of is, oh, we don't have the space, okay, or we don't have so many people, okay, we don't have so many trans people, we don't have the space for creating this. And what do they own? They own one whole building, okay, and they would not have space for a toilet in every floor, right? So many a times, many organizations have, but they don't have a disabled person with disability also, but they will have a toilet over there because that gives them brownie points when they have to fit in. So one of the things that I did in Axis, and I was faced with the same challenges, and one of the things that we did was we repurposed the person with disability restroom. All that was needed was a label changed to an all gender restroom, which is also used by persons with disability. Okay, but that was not enough. I knew that there could be people who want to use the women's restroom. They want to use the men's restroom. There could be a trans man who wants to use the men's restroom. Now, what happens in that case? So we also brought in a practice where wherever there is a person who's gender variant and they wish to use a restroom, their choice of restroom will be honored first. So that was met with a little bit of resistance at the workplace also. They said, how will we come to know? That means any man can get into a woman's restroom. Any woman can get into a man's restroom. So they came up with the whole conversation that's happening in the US was something that I witnessed in close circles, okay, not very openly. They would not come and speak openly, but they'll pose these questions in a very matter-of-factly manner. Okay, they'll be like, what if there is a request like that? Okay, that's how the tone of the question would be. I said, okay, so you have this problem, then raise it as your problem rather than the world's problem. One of the things that organization heads need to take in, sometimes having a buy-in from the top helps. Where when these questions were there, the senior leaders in the bank said, if you have a problem of someone else using the restroom that you use, you don't pee. The priority will be given to the gender variant person. Okay, you have a problem, you don't use the restroom. You can choose to not use the restroom. So I think that is one of the things that is there, that we need to have a buy-in from the top. Also, dress code policies. Most organizations have very stringent dress code policies. Like for instance, they'll also prescribe what dress a man has to wear, what dress a woman has to wear. Now, what do people who feel differently, who are gender fluid, gender non-conforming, people who identify as transgender, what dress code do they wear? Okay, what dress code do they wear to actually fit in. Because everyone wants to be inclusive at least to show the world. So what exactly would be the dress code for them? So one of the and not all companies would have a flexible dress code. Okay, where you can say that one is practically, why should anyone fit into any dress code? That also puts in the whole thing. But now staying in the system and understanding a little bit of how do you push them for doing more. One of the things that we discovered was we have a dress code for men, we have a dress code for women, and we have a dress code for people who would fit in, who would identify as a person from the LGBTQI plus community and could be gender variant, could or could not belong to the LGBTQI plus community, but who would have a different gender expression or a different gender identity. Now they could choose to dress as either of the two. Okay, if you don't need to discover, remodel a new, slowly, possibly the whole dress code thing needs to go away. That would be the most ideal thing. But how do you push? How do you push for more? How do you push for more? There are some grounding policies that every organization needs to have. Because when you speak, there are some policies which are compliant just because there is some government, this thing, you have the you have the Vishaka guidelines that have come in, so you have POSH. So what really happens to men who face abuse from men in workplaces? What about trans men? What about trans women? What about intersex persons who don't find a mention anywhere? Okay, people don't even understand what is intersex. They conflate it with transgender identities. Even codes do that, right? So what really can be done when it comes to these things? So I think every organization can find the space for two policies, for instance, which is a mandate, which should be a mandate for everyone. One is the human rights policy, where you mention that and you give a number, give an email ID over there that needs to have a redressal mechanism. You give an email ID over there as well, saying that if there is any violation, and in human rights policy, it becomes very important for us to mention what exactly are these policies, in the sense, mention caste, mention religion, mention ethnicity, mention sexuality, mention sex, mention gender identity, mention all these words, because these mentions, just the mere mention of these words will make the people who fall into, like intersex, just by saying gender and sexuality will not help. You need to mention sex also, so that it helps intersex people as well, right? So I in fact I had shared with Vibhuti ma'am some policies that we have drafted, which are put in the public domain. So don't copy it exactly the same way, but use insights from those policies to see how you could craft your own and mention all these things. It's important to mention. So what really happens, even the code of conduct policy, that is the third policy you need to keep in mind, where you mention human rights policy, of course, says that we protect the human rights of everybody, mention every category over there. Then also mention human rights policy needs to be overarching. It should not be only for the employees of your organization, but also to your vendors, also to also to people whom you deploy, also to contractual workers, to everybody. So human rights policy should be one of the policies, which should be the grounding policy, which should be there. The second policy is the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. This can extend to external people, but to internal people specifically, which speaks about discrimination, but which also has a has a redressal mechanism, which says that these are the email IDs that you reach out to if you face anything. And third is the code of conduct, where you mention code of conduct, where you put all gender, sexuality, and everything. The only thing, and one of the things that every organization will have to do, is repurpose, just as I spoke about restrooms. Okay, repurpose. So POSH committee demands that you have a committee, you have a complaint committee, you have an internal person, you have an external person, it necessitates each of those things, and those committees are in place. If they are not compliant, then there could be a complaint that could go, and they will be liable for punishment if they're not compliant. Their license could be taken away. Now, for us to reach a point in place for LGBTQI plus people to have that kind of stringent, this thing might take time. That is the truth. It will take time. So what organizations can do is repurpose this committee for any sexual offense that happens with anybody. So put the same procedure, put the same record everything. The only thing that they will not do is they will not be reporting to the government. That's the only thing that they don't do. Apart from the reporting part, which is a mandatory reporting that needs to be done, everything else can be done by organizations. Okay, so only thing that will not happen is reporting. Put everything else in place. And when you have the external person who comes in, have an external person from the community that we are speaking about. Like whether if it's a person with disability, include a person with disability, a specialist from who happens to be a person with disability in that. If it happens to be, and also include this as a part of your other. What if there is a perpetrator or a complainant, a respondent or a complainant who belongs to the LGBTQI plus community? Okay, what if that is the case? What if it is a lesbian person who is on who's the complainant, and the respondent is respondent could be a man, because that's how posh is designed, a man, a cis man, but there isn't a provision if the respondent happens to be a trans man. There isn't a very clear-cut provision over there. So what happens? Does the respondent go scot-free? No. What if the perpetrator, the real perpetrator, happens to be a trans man? So how do you put redressal mechanisms like these in place by repurposing your entire this thing? The punishments could be the same, the challenges could be the same. Just repurposing these groups will make a lot of difference for us when we actually fighting these battles, fierce battles within our organizational structures. Organizational structures are going to be limiting. It is going to be dominant with certain castes, certain religions. It is going to be there. Many organizations will pussyfoot when it comes to issues like caste and religion and other things. They would not speak about these issues. They would speak about issues on gender and issues of sexuality. They would speak about gender, sexualities, because these are emerging. It has not been politicized to the extent that will be uncomfortable for people on the top. It has not happened to that. So till it's comfortable to speak about these issues, they will, right? But the human rights issue, the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy is the space where you can find all of this. But of course, the real thing is not in framing these laws, it's in the practice. So one of the things that every organization should have is a diversity, equity, and inclusion council. You have these Pride ERG groups, okay? Many of these Pride ERG groups meet only during the Pride month in many organizations. On how you're building intersectional elements when you're speaking about other issues. How do you build this in? How do you not make it? If you really look for celebrating Pride, there is one Pride event every month. There is something for bisexuals, there's something for transgender, there's something for pansexuals, there's one day every month. Okay, if you really look for it, you will find some day or the other, right? But how do you repurpose? How do you make this intersectional element? And the real task for us as people who support LGBTQI plus people who are interested in the view beyond the binary is to look at elements. Have a transgender person speak about when you're having a thing about policies, have a transgender person on stage for something like that. If you are speaking about, you have the, like something like, I'll tell you a simple thing. We have a cafeteria committee which decides on food. Okay. Now, till this time, the food cafeteria committee had all cis men in that committee. Then they included women, and now they have included a gender fluid person, which is me. Now, suddenly, after they have included other people, now suddenly I see that the cafeteria staff in the cafeteria and the vendors that they're bringing, they're getting more vendors who happen to be women, cis women. They're now they're toying on the idea of getting more vendors who happen to be people who identify as transgender, right? So the moment they get added, the more variety. So try and constitute, don't keep everyone focused only on the pride committees, only on the diversity committees. Ensure that we infiltrate every other committee which is there and raise our voice over there, because those are the spaces which need more inclusion. Those are the spaces which need more. When you're having, we had this committee for, for women issues. I ensured that there was a transgender woman who was there over there. And suddenly there was mindfulness that came in everyone else's language when it's over there. So for us, it's also important that we come out, and the onus of inclusion should not be on those who are excluded. It should be on those who are included. So the onus of inclusion always lies on those who are included, not on those who are excluded. So that responsibility is something that we need to take. I wish that we come to a point where LGBTQI plus people don't have to fight and scream and shout, but we haven't really reached that space today. I'm going to take you through a small video before okay, I'm unable to share sound. One second. Can you enable sharing sound for me? Is there someone? Okay. I'm unable to share sound because I had a video to share and I'm not able to send the video.
So please try to play it. Your mic will take the audio.
Okay, mic will take the audio? Okay.
Yes. Let us try.
I will try. Okay. Okay, I have a scene to share. I had a whole presentation, but I thought that looking at the crowd, I thought that it would be good to have a conversation rather than missing out on something. Okay, tell me if you can hear this, okay?
Sure.
Are you able to?
Can you make it slideshow mode? It is a working mode.
Sorry?
Can you make it in a slideshow mode? Currently,
But are you able to hear it?
mode.
Are you able to hear it?
Not their sound. We are able to hear you. Yeah.
Oh, you're not able to hear the sound here?
No.
Oh, okay.
Try play again. Playing
okay,
again.
1 second. I will stop sharing and share again. 1 second.
Yeah.
Sometimes while sharing again, no, it doesn't give me the video share option. Is there a way that we could do that? 1 second. I'll just try. Okay.
Yeah. Now try playing it. Yes.
Okay. 1 second. I'll again. Okay. Stop share. I will reshare.
Do you have the video file with you?
Link you have?
I don't have a link.
But do you have the video file with you? You can.
Video file also will not show sound. It doesn't show sound.
It should. If you open the video file.
Okay.
You can try to share the screen.
Okay. 1 second. I'll just try doing that. But if it doesn't work, I will just go on with. I can share these links with you later. Okay. So let me share without sound. Okay. I will share the links with you later so that you could have a look at this. Okay. Okay. For some reason, I'm not able to play the slide also now.
Oh my God.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, this is the scene. This is a scene from Do Biga Zameen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Babu, that's what he says. Hey, Utut, chal dalji chal. Ramnath, bye bye, tata. Hey, jaldi chal. Uske piche chal. Maybe he's trying to race. They both are racing. और जल्दी चलो. 10 रुपया, 3 रुपया. And then he says 6 रुपया. 4 रुपया. 6 रुपया. 6 रुपया, जल्दी चलो. और तेज. So this is a scene from Do Biga Zameen. Okay. It's about, you just saw the scene. It's basically about how did this scene speak to you? Okay. It speaks about, of course, it speaks about capitalism. It speaks about how they're being pushed from one to another, to another, to another. Just before this call, I was speaking to somebody I was on a panel discussion in office, and there's this one person coming and serving water after 5 minutes. So I said that, so I said, okay, why don't you introduce, does that person have a name? I said, yeah. I said, then why don't you introduce that person? Okay. And then you introduce, and sometimes we unsee so many people in our day-to-day life. Okay. I'd like to share some incident that happened in Access. When I had joined in, I had this, I wanted to find out if there are sanitary pads in the women's restroom. Okay. And this was after 1 week of joining in. And I decided, and I've been used to speaking to people in a very casual way. So I had this person who was who they usually clean the toilets, and they are the staff over there. So I told them, I said, why did you come? I just called those people to the meeting room, and I said that, Mitali, tu andar aao or have a seat. I want to discuss something with you, because I didn't want to discuss in front of everybody. So I said, we'll discuss. So come to the room. First, they were very hesitant to walk inside the room. And then they walked inside the room. They were very hesitant to sit. And then I had to speak to them and tell them, no, you have to sit. You have to sit. I will have a conversation with you only if you sit down. I said, and then we had a couple of other people saying, why are they sitting over there? Okay, they didn't ask me. They didn't tell me in so many words, right? But they're like, oh, what were they doing there? What was happening there and all that. So I said, they are the custodians. If they are looking after the restrooms, and if the manager is going to I asked the manager, they didn't know what was happening over there, whether they had sanitary pads, because it was a cis man who was there. So I asked them, and they didn't, and they included that, not just in the women's restroom, in the men's restroom also, right? And but for them, the hesitance and the thing that we do often by saying, oh, 10 rupiya lo, 15 rupiya lo, and we are rid of all the guilt. We don't have to give them any recognition, any support. And in an average, I get at least 4 phone calls in a week asking people to send LGBTQ people. Who LGBTQ people? Trans people. Send. For what jobs? security. And I'll tell you about various other things that happen in the corporate place, which we don't usually speak about, because usually when you speak, when corporates come and they speak about issues, it's all the beautifully sanitized, beautifully crafted PowerPoint presentations is what they would present about what are the great things that they've done. But let me share a few things which have been my failures many a times. So one of the things that I did as the head of diversity in Access is in the month of, I wanted to do a hiring drive. Okay. And I decided that, oh, I'm going to do this hiring drive and I'm going to include everybody. Okay. So we called it the Come As You Are hiring drive. And we did around 15 locations across the length and breadth of the country for LGBTQIA plus people. And we said that, okay, women and persons with disability can also join in, but this is a specific diversity hiring drive. So I called in all the HR people. I spoke to them about sex, sexuality, and gender. I spoke to them about the challenges that are faced by the community. I came out to them practically 10 times in 10 sessions that I would have had with them till date. So I did all of this and everything. And then I got a call from someone someone who knew Abina Ahir. And the person had gone to the Delhi office to give an interview, okay, for a job. Now what happened when this person went, and this person is a cis man who identifies as gay. He went to the job and interview, and the security person told this person, and because I had sensitized so many people that I don't want any discrimination, I don't want this thing, I want the right atmosphere to be given. The security person told this person, we don't have a hiring drive for you. So he said that this is for my community. I can see the poster over here. You have written LGBTQIA plus people were welcome. आप तो आदमी हो, आपको नहीं मिलेगा. ये सब औरतों के लिए और persons और race के. So when I explained, and then I asked him to give the phone to the security person. The security person wouldn't listen to me, right? And then I called up the HR person who spoke to another person. Then they spoke to another person. Finally, we didn't think of sensitizing the security person over there. So the last leg of communication didn't happen because we thought that, oh, we will sensitize our employees and we'll gain all the laurels. I thought that I will put it in my sexy PowerPoint presentation, 100% people covered in my sex, sexuality, and gender session. I didn't think it was important to speak to that person who's actually the person who will be the first point of contact, right? So our policies need to be all inclusive, which also means outsourced staff, which also means the person at the last leg, right? Now, he didn't mean any harm. The security person who happens to be a cis male didn't mean any harm. He was trying to follow orders and say, oh, this is diversity. Diversity means what? Woman. Diversity for him doesn't mean trans people. Diversity for him doesn't mean gay men. For him, it meant women, right? And then there was another person who was a trans man who went to one of our Calcutta offices. And the person faced a lot of onlooking, where the interviewer was looking upar niche tatol ke, finding out if the person is really why is this person applying for a job. All that happens because sensitization doesn't cure curiosity, right? So it is the hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering. And though we constantly say the onus of inclusion lies on those who are included, not on those who are excluded, the onus often falls on people who are gender variant to come and educate people, but more visibility will only lead to more action. That is the truth as well. Okay. Now, this person we interviewed, we liked the person, we wanted to give the person a job. This person didn't get a relieving certificate from the previous job because that person was absconding from the previous job. That's what it showed. And HR, like policies like banks, will have absconding. What if he is absconding because he's swindled fund? Because there's nothing given over there, just absconding. What if this person had swindled fund? So these are red marks when we actually look at people who are there, and they are not wrong from that perspective, because if someone works in the bank, some people, and in the branches, some people will be trusting money with them also. So these are red flags. But what we did was we found out through our circle, because the previous company was also a finance company, the HR team, and HR teams are also very focused on just looking at things the way they look at things. They don't make changes in their thinking or their procedures, even if you have training for them. So what they did was they were looking at everything. We called up the previous employer and we said that we are doing this. They didn't give us any reason. But in that conduct, we could discover that that they were very transphobic, because we posed as transgender people and we called them up and we asked them. We also got somebody to apply for a job as a trans person in this thing to find out how they were behaving, and the results were not very positive. And that's how the background verification, we relaxed it for this person by doing something. So there is a way. There is a way. And I called up that company and I called them up and I asked them that why did this person leave? They said that this person left because this person was absconding. I said, what absconding? Because this person is alleging that there is discrimination. So will you give them the relieving certificate, or should I put it up? That this person was working with you? Because this is the fact. You can deal with the person later, that this person was working with you and we are not able to help this person, employ this person, because this person will not be employed anywhere else if that happened. Right? Because they will not take this person. So we did that, and not only did we get the person the job, but also the relieving letter from the previous employer. So sometimes people who are in these positions of power need to walk the extra mile, and you will not achieve everything. Most organizations will not achieve 100% sensitivity. Still, people go to Axis Bank, you will face discrimination. That could happen. Okay. But the management of the organization, when they stand up and they say that this is what is going to be a part of our training, this is what is going to be a part of our culture, this is the stand that we take. So it can't eliminate discrimination, but at least there will be redressal and there will be people working on it, strengthening it. That is something that every organization should have. So that's my brief conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in Axis Bank. And many organizations will not be perfect, but as long as they take a stand and they stay perfect on that stand, there is scope of improvement. They could do better. Axis can definitely do better. I can vouch for it. Mm-hmm. Any questions? Anything that you'd want to ask?
I wish to convey my sincere appreciation, sir, for the enriching session and for generously imparting your valuable experience with us. We're truly grateful, and moving forward, I would request Professor Bhuti Patel to provide her remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
You're on mute.
I fully endorse.
No, now you're on mute.
So I think I fully endorse what you said. So I don't have any remarks, but I want to share. There are so many parallels that we have also gone through, that anytime you invite any LGBTQI person or person cross-dresser to the campus, there will be catcall, meaning right from security staff, gatekeepers to the students. We have to do a lot of counseling. And before that, and I think Swati ji can say what all happened in the Manibenana, but it's a women's college. So still, like so many of us had to face this thing. My problem when I was in Bombay University and a member secretary of Women Development Cell, so many cases of boys hostel where there was a laceration, extreme brutal form of violence, and it did not come under the purview of WDC. So isn't it a time to convert this WDC into Women and Gender Development Cell? Because I brought it up to the notice. I had a very progressive Vice Chancellor, Dr. Mungekar, very sensitive and all, but we had to solve the problem through other means, like getting that person, survivor out of that particular hostel. There were 5-6 hostels. So that, or trying for a single room. And then two people would make remarks that, oh, because that person wants to be in single room, he has cooked up the story of violence and all that. So I think, how do you see the anti-ragging law, and does it work in the, because any form of psychological, emotional, physical and sexual violence is covered under the law, but is it operational?
See, while practicality of these things, Ritu said the right thing. It is gender inclusive, all these UGC guidelines, right? But despite that, the awareness levels are very low, and this selective omission that is done, where you don't even the security staff is not even sensitized. There is no conversation, and sensitization is only about ye शाम के 6 बजे के बाद ये लड़की लोग को बाहर घूमने मत देना. That is sensitization for them, So that is how it works. Despite see, because progressive policies and practices would be there, but unless and until it's followed like a culture, it doesn't. And so many ragging, like if you really look at, if you look at the anti-ragging law that is there, there's no, and unless you specifically mention sexuality, unless you specifically mention and you demonstrate that in action, it will not work. I have a very similar incident with, I'd been to KJ Somaiya College of Engineering, and the principal was very progressive, and this is way before 377 being read down, way before that. And very progressive. We had like a pride parade inside the college and all of that. But Urmi Jadhav, one of my trans friends from the Hijra community, she was stopped at the gate. She didn't, the program came to an end, and here we were celebrating, raising flags, and we are singing praises for the principal and everything. And she walks in absolutely livid and angry because she was stopped at the gate and she had to, fight and then get in, so it was, there are a lot of systemic challenges which exist. Just changing policies will not help. Yeah. How do you practice it every day, and what are the trainings you have make a lot of difference.
Thank you. So I think we have a few questions. Also, the floor is open for questions. I think we have a question from Seema Ji. There are parallels also in terms of women's movement and the attempts to address women's rights. It's an ongoing struggle. It's more of a comment.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of commonalities. Each of these struggles. Many a times, what we do is we do something and then we reinvent the wheel. Okay. If there is much for us to learn. If right in the beginning we made everything inclusive, we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So, but I do understand that there are challenges. Like I'll tell you, just as Rituparna has mentioned, exactly the same thing I faced right now, Ritu. I had been for my office trip, but it worked in my favor because everyone was sharing rooms. I got a room for myself. So, because they were like, how do I should I put Harish with women? I said, I'm okay with women, and I know 2-3. I named them also. I said, with them, I don't have a problem sleeping with them in their room. I said, but there were men. He said, we asked men, they don't have a problem. Will you be okay? I said, I'm okay. But tomorrow, don't tell me that there was this thing. So I got a different room by myself. but it doesn't work like that when it comes to hostels. You're not in this thing. You'll be forced to go out of the hostel many a times when issues like this happen. I think we have a lot to learn from other movements, and again, we'll do something for LGBT people, but what happens to people who belong to marginalized castes, marginalized religions? What really happens to them? Again, reinvent the whole thing, again, do the whole thing. Right from the beginning, if we have our grounding principles, grounding values, that any kind of difference would be accepted. Okay. And any kind of conflict will not be seen as troublemakers, but as opportunities for us to better ourselves. Okay. Change doesn't happen when everything is simple and sane. Change happens in conflicts. So you require those conflicts to actually propel us further. And that is not something that people understand. Had I not put up a matrimonial ad with my Iyer surname, I wouldn't have known of the privilege and the challenges that it could pose. That had I not been called out, I wouldn't have been in speaking about caste and religion within the same vein. I went into a retrospect. I went understanding what exactly it is, what exactly are the challenges, because I was caste blind completely. So many a times there are these things, experiences and conflicts that we all have to face to finally understand and get better if we are getting better. And we also open to more criticism every time. Thank you.
Um, if the participants have any further questions, I hope Harissa will kind enough to answer them there. I would like to move forward with the session, and going forward, I would want to express my genuine gratitude for your participation, sir, and thank you once again. So moving forward, I would request Rituparna Buraji to start the session. Rituparna Buraji is co-director Nazaria, a queer feminist resource group, New Delhi. Rituparna Buraji will be taking the session on linkages of sexuality and gender with other developmental issues, concepts of sexual norms, and sexual hierarchy. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. I am Rituparna. My pronouns are she and her. No need to call me G. Just Rituparna is okay. And thank you for having me here. The first thing all of us can do is write down our pronouns next to our names. I think that's the first thing that we can do to bring in some change in on our work on gender and sexuality. Thank you again for having me here. It's a very little time to talk about linkages. I think some of my other panelists have spoken about some of the linkages. As a queer feminist, leftist, and indigenous person, I would like to bring about some of the linkages that, can I share a slide, please? Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Okay. So I just want to talk about, I don't know what has been talked about, what has people spoken about in terms of gender and sexuality. So my first, and I would want to make it participatory, and I want if people just write on chats that what do they think about it. So when I talk about gender and sexuality, do you think that, do you think that gender is gender identity and sexuality is equal to sexual orientation? Yes or no? Or do you think gender and sexuality are like used irreversibly with each other? Like we can use gender sexuality with each other, like gender and sexuality without. Yeah, some people have answered. Yes. What does yes mean? Okay, answered. Okay, where do I have to check? Getting confused now. Answered me. Okay. Okay, now can anyone tell, do you think gender and sexuality are two different things? Or gender and sexuality are the same things? Has someone replied? Oh, great. Please answer. जल्दी जल्दी करते हैं ना, क्या टाइम लगेगा? 1 सेकंड की बात है.
I think there are answers in the chat section.
Is it? Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Where
We do
should I
have
look?
Chat.
in the chat section, webinar chat.
Yeah, chat section. I'm opening the chat section. Should I look at the answer? And okay. Well, gender is okay. Yeah. There are two different concepts, different. Gender and sexuality are different, so very different. Sexuality is the attraction one feels. Yes, some people say yes, some people are saying no. While gender identity is self-expression, the way one identifies as two different concepts, gender and sexuality, very different. Okay. My second question to you would be, is gender is equal to gender identity and sexuality is equal to sexual orientation? Just simply, just the way you wrote on the chat.
So around 80 to 90% are saying no.
They're saying no.
Yes,
Okay.
most of the people.
No, most of it. Thank you so much. Because no, gender, whenever people talk about gender, it seems like gender has become gender identity and sexuality has become sexual orientation. But we all have gender, we all carry gender, and we all have sexual orientation. But gender is beyond gender identity. Gender is about norms. Gender is about gender expression. Gender is about gender norms. कि लड़कियों को कैसे बैठना चाहिए, you know, कितना खाना चाहिए, how much should a girl study, and लड़कों को कैसा होना चाहिए, you know, how should a boy behave. And sexuality is not just about sexual orientation, it is not just about desires also, it is also about the sexual norms. You know, you have to you have to you know, dhako your breast when you go out as a woman. You should not wear short clothes and show your private parts. You know, even if you have some disease on your breast, who should you show your breast to? To a woman gynecologist, and these are very serious issues, you know. And you should, who should you get married to? To a man of your caste, of your class, of your religion. And these are the sexual norms. Like gender has norms, sexuality also has norms. Sexuality is not just about sexual desires. Sexuality is also about your body, the way you carry your body, you know. So please start thinking about gender and sexuality beyond sexual orientation and gender identity. Why I'm saying this? Because we need to make the linkages of gender and sexuality with other development issues. Because of LGBTI discourse, thanks for that. And remember that LGBTI is not a monolithic term. Other people have also mentioned there's a lot of discussion on male assigned at birth people. And why am I using that term? Because there's a lot of visibility of male assigned at birth people. People who are assigned gender male at birth. People who are assigned female gender at birth. For example, lesbian, bisexual women, transmasculine people, or other persons who are queer or trans who are assigned female at birth are still very invisible. In various researches or census, for example, if I ask you to go and do a research on how many lesbian women are in your neighborhood, what would be your research question and what would be your methodology? who would you ask this question? Are you a lesbian or not? Would you go and ask the same question to a married woman? Would you ask the question to a widow? Would you ask a question to a divorced woman? Marriage is so sacrosanct in our country, and in our crisis intervention cases, many women who are married come out as lesbian women. So the invisibilization of lesbian women and queer women is huge. So, and therefore, this doing a census for queer women would be very difficult. So therefore, we need to think of gender as separate and sexuality as separate sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And this is the first thing that I want to talk about. Okay, now let's talk about how is gender linked to issues of poverty, livelihood, health, workplace, education, business, whatever you are working on. For example, how is gender linked to poverty? Can anyone tell me, or can anyone share on the chat if you can? How is gender linked to poverty? Think about the wide spectrum of gender. For example, your organization is working on poverty alleviation, right? Or your thesis is on poverty alleviation. Now you think that sexual or gender is not so important for your work. And when you think of gender, you think of women's issues. But when I'm talking about gender, I'm talking about gender as a broad spectrum. So how is gender important for issues of poverty? It's very easy.
I think someone has raised their hand. Kriti ji? Please, could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, start speaking. I love people who speak.
Yeah, so regarding gender and poverty, in my opinion, since a lot of workplaces, they hire on the basis of gender, like in spite of having, we do not discriminate on the basis of gender. There are a lot of sections of society who do not get to work in certain areas. So for example, earlier women didn't get to work in a lot of spaces. But then right now, transgender women, a lot of them do not have the opportunity to work in a lot of spaces where, probably other genders are allowed.
Okay. I think Kriti has also raised her hand.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Maris Put here. Can I go?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I would like to in three intersection here with regard to gender and poverty. Now, if you look at the persons with a disability lens,
yes.
Okay, as compared to male disabled, okay, women with disabilities are most vulnerable. They have been with regard to poverty, with regard to some accessibility of schemes and marriage and jobs, they are most vulnerable. This is one thing. And second thing, with regard to LGB, in fact, I'm telling you, with regard to transgenders, trans women.
Can you say transgender persons, please?
Yeah,
transgender is an adjective. Yeah.
No, actually, transgender persons, with regard to trans women, actually, as compared to trans men, trans women are most vulnerable. Because I experienced in this one, what happened, trans women are rather highly subjected to sexual assault and rape rather than trans men, and especially with regard to poverty and all, trans men still manage to get some kind of jobs. When I interacted with some of the people, right? So this actually tells me to look at it. There is a connection between gender and poverty, especially with regard to male gender. Others, which includes trans men or trans women or women with disabilities, they are most vulnerable, or they are inclined towards more poverty as compared to male gender, which I feel.
We can use men because men is gender, male is biology. Okay, yeah.
Men only. I would like to use men only.
Yeah. So yeah, we will just go quick because we don't have time. No, it's good you have brought in disability also, because when we talk about gender, it intersects with caste. Because for example, Dalit cis women are very poor. And it's not just about trans people, it's not about lesbian women who are poor, it's not about other people who are poor. It's also Dalit women who are poor, who are at the margins of the society. It's about disabled Dalit. Think about the intersection, disabled Dalit woman who is poor, right? The kind of issues that she will be facing. And let's not make assumptions that trans women are more vulnerable, because trans men are not organized yet. Trans men, because they are thought of as women, quote unquote women, in the family situation, there's a lot of natal family violence, because people think that the families think that they are women and they're treated as women. So because women face a lot of restriction and violence in the natal family, they face conversion therapy, they face corrective rape. Trans men face a lot of these things because they're treated quote unquote as women by the natal family. So these is things. In terms of livelihood, also gender is quite linked. The crashes are not yet available. Trans women, trans men, lesbian women are thrown out of jobs. Women, we have always heard about the glass ceiling, how the top management is actually linked. There are no cis women there in the place. Health-wise, we cis women do not get the choice to produce, to reproduce how many babies they want. And also, if you are poor, you do not get access to the best health facilities. Similarly, for trans people also, if you are poor, you don't get access to health facilities. You don't get good access to facilities. Even if you are rich, you don't get recognized. Lesbian woman, being a lesbian woman, and I am a lesbian activist. Long back, now to doctors are a little bit better in Delhi. Long back, when I came out to my gynecologist as a lesbian woman, she refused to look at me. And she said, I am not treating you now. So I had to look for a gynecologist, and I had to travel for 30 kilometers just to find a queer affirmative gynecologist. Gender is definitely linked to that. Our workplace, Harish talked about it. Gender is definitely linked to the workplace. Education. लड़कियों को पढ़ने के लिए नहीं भेजा जाता है, trans people get dropped out. Transgender persons are linked to gender. To transgender persons get dropped out because of stigma, bullying, and lot of things that they face at in the school, in the education system. The education curriculum is not good. They talk about one type of families, or they talk about one mainstream idea of how one should be. Businesses, same thing. Similarly, now how is sexuality related to poverty, livelihood, health, workplace, education, business, etc.? In terms of poverty, if you're poor, and if you have a sexual or reproductive health related disease, think about what kind of facilities will you get. If you're poor, you want to access good gynecologist for a small something in your breast, or gay men not being able to access good doctors for sex-related issues. Trans women not being able to access good doctors because of sexuality, because of the sexuality. In the education sector, when you talk about sexual education, comprehensive sexuality education is not yet covered, and comprehensive sexuality education is very, very dogmatic, very instrumentalist, very one-sided, and just talks about heterosexual families. They do not talk about families of one woman with two pets, or one or two women, or three women, or a woman and a friend living together, or chosen families, or things like that. In terms of workplace, sexuality is very, very linked. Who can come out and who cannot come out as queer? Think about a single woman who has 2-3 boyfriends, and she's very okay about her boyfriends. She is polyamorous and she has 2-3 boyfriends. What will her co-workers think about her? What will the name that she will get in the workplace? Slut. And if she gets promotion, what will people think? That she has slept her way through the ladder. That's how sexuality is linked to livelihood, health, poverty, and other things. And I have also given a reading material to the IMPRI team to read. Please go through that reading. Any questions as of now? Yes, people have written about it. Poor families are very rigid. ऐसा नहीं होता है कोमल. Gender roles in poor families are more rigid. ऐसा नहीं होता है. Gender roles in poor families are sometimes less rigid. And I'm sure Vibhuti can talk about it because she's also taught economics. Because poor families में औरतों को बाहर जाना पड़ता है काम करने के लिए. When you are earning member of the family, you are bringing in money. You also have mobility. I'm sure Vibhuti agrees to it. You're mute.
The mobility and also social life, interacting with people, exposure to outside world, they are much higher among those who are working class women.
Yes,
because their survival struggle itself demands, the material reality demands that they have to negotiate with so many multifaceted forces and the outside.
Yeah. And gender roles in actually upper caste, rich families are more stringent.
Correct.
Especially in like Brahmin families and Thakur families and all, they are more stringent because the honor of the family, because you see private property and the honor of a poor woman actually nahi hai itna linked to their lives. But the honor of a rich family and the honor of the private property, wo kiska bacha paida karegi, is so much linked to the woman that what if she goes out and has sex with someone else and the blood is not pure, then the entire caste system will crash, right? So therefore the gender roles in upper caste and upper class families are very, very rigid. And it's a false narrative that gender roles in poor families are rigid.
I think in Q&A, they have written, Kirti Bandyopadhyay and Riya Jadhav, Ankita Maini, they have.
Kirtiji, if you could unmute yourself, or I'm happy to read.
No, I saw the question. Do we need to reveal our sexual origin gynecologist? Why not? Because they ask, the first question that a gynecologist asks is, are you married? You know, when we have some issues in our vagina, sorry, I'm using those words, but we have to use because it's a sexuality workshop. You have some issues, for example, you have infection or something. The first question, you enter a gynecologist room, are you married? Then you'll have to say no. And if the gynecologist is progressive enough, they'll say, oh, do you have a boyfriend? Then again, you'll have to change your answer. Well, no. So then you'll have to obviously say, then they will look at you with like horror because you definitely have engaged with some kind of sex. They look at you, then I'll say that, okay, I have sex. I'm not asexual. There is asexual people also. I'm not asexual. I have sex, but with another woman. That's how, and actually there's a saying, Kirti, that with the lawyer and with the doctor, you tell everything. And that's what I believe in. And of course, I want to get myself cured. So I tell everything. Or kuch hai?
Yeah, the participants are free to raise their hands or write down their question in the Q&A section or the chat section. preferably the Q&A section.
Riya said transfer their property because of, yeah, true. They don't get education, and women household work is unpaid labor. Totally, women farmers kaun bolte hain? If I ask you to draw the picture of a farmer, most of the people draw the picture of a man farmer. Yeah. So we can move ahead.
Does preferential treatment towards community create any inequity and misunderstanding? How can they be addressed?
Preferential towards the community. So this is not preferential treatment actually. Article 15 of the Indian Constitution talks about equity quite clearly. And there's a section, so if you look at the fundamental rights, if you look at Article 15, we talk about actually positive treatment. This is not preferential treatment. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for equality. So preferential treatment does not mean we are asking for special rights. We are asking for equal rights. Just like for ages, cis women have been oppressed, Dalit people have been oppressed, indigenous people have been oppressed, and therefore their systems, which are meant to be elevate them and or to make them equal in the society, which will take many years, of course. Because you go to a police station, you'll see a Thakur and a Chauhan in North India, or you go to a doctor's, you'll see Sharma, you'll see Tripathi, or you'll see, I don't know, all these surnames in North India. Similarly, for a queer person to actually be able to hold such positions, it will take ages. And as an indigenous lesbian woman, I'm talking about it, because for me to be part of the women's movement first, and then the queer movement, and to become a leader, it took me ages. So that's what it is. So we are asking for equality, not special rights. So we'll go to the next slide. So now, based on all the discussions we have had in the first panel, also I have heard the first panel, then the Hartrish's panel. So have you heard this word sexual hierarchy? Have you heard the word hierarchy? I'm sure you have heard hierarchy, like in offices and colleges, like in workplaces, you have hierarchy. There's a boss, there's something who has more power, who has less power, and then, power. So in sexual relationships also, in sexuality discourse also, mostly in sexual relationships and sexual acts, there is hierarchy. What is important in this hierarchy is that based on where you are in this hierarchy, and I'm going to show you this thing. I don't know if you can see it, or can you see it? Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. So based on this hierarchy, so this is anthropologist called Gail Rubin, who basically talked about the charm circle. Now, what is a charm circle? We love being in the charm circle, whatever it is. We love power. And don't say we don't love power. We love power. We love some sort of power. We love some sort of recognition. We love some sort of acknowledgement. This is about the sexual hierarchy. So inside, if you see, there is heterosexual. Opposite to heterosexual is homogeneous. There's married and insane, matlab not married. There's monogamous and there's promiscuous, matlab polyamorous. There's procreative, matlab बच्चा पैदा करने के लिए, एक है बच्चा नहीं पैदा के लिए. एक है free, matlab आप पैसों का लेन देन नहीं हो रहा है, non-transactional sex. There's sex for money. There's coupled with two people. There's alone, either masturbation or in groups. There is in relationship, where is romantic relationship involved, or there's just casual sex. There's same generation sex, or there's cross generation sex. At home, inside home, ghar ban karke, room ban karke, and it's outside, anywhere, in the park or outside. There's no pornography involved, or there is pornography involved. There's only bodies involved, like with bodies, human bodies, and with manufactured objects like toys and all. Vanilla, matlab regular sex, and the other is BDSM, which involves pain, bondage, domination, things like that. And what Gail Rubin, what they talked about is that in the inside one is basically what we all aspire to be, and which gets a lot of economic benefits and social benefits also. Think about the economic benefits that this inside Ghera will get. For example, if you are married, if you are all this, if you are married in the same caste, same religion, whatever it is, what benefits will you get? You can get a home loan together. You can nominate your spouse for your PF, for your everything. If you are monogamous, if you are in a relationship with the same person, you'll actually get recognized in the society as a good woman or a good person, or not like a bad person. You are in a relationship, romantic relationship. People will be like, wow, what a couple, like excellent. And on the other hand, if you are engaging in casual sex, oh, slut hai, kharab hai, all these things. And if you are actually exchanging sex free, that is within marriage, then it's excellent. It's a free transaction. But if you're doing it for money, that sex workers are actually violated a lot, mostly by police, by the way, not by clients. It's the police who violates and the sex workers a lot. So हाँ, मैन्युफैक्चर्ड ऑब्जेक्ट्स तो मतलब इंडिया में बहुत मुश्किल से आदान प्रदान होता है. यू कांट टॉक अबाउट इट. पोर्नोग्राफी तो सिर्फ हमारे मिनिस्टर से देख पाते हैं, हमारे लिए तो मना ही है. तो मतलब these are some of the things that in India we can see pornography, but we can't exchange pornography. We can't share pornography with others. So, and there's a whole debate on feminist pornography and things like that, which can be another chapter. But what Gail Rubin talks about is that if you break, and the charm circle is so strict, so stringent, that if you break one norm of the inside circle, you immediately go to the outside circle. For example, if you're married and all that, if you don't want to have children, if you're a child-free couple, you'll immediately go to the outside. This is how stringent this charm circle is. And this is why it is very, very important to understand how sexual norms are actually created to keep us fearful कि ये हो जाएगा तो ये हो जाएगा. ये भी सेम सेक्सुअल नॉर्म्स की तरह है कि आपका वॉल्स बना हुआ है सोसाइटी में, जैसे कास्ट बेस्ड सोसाइटीज में वॉल्स होते हैं ना, ये किसका पानी पियेंगे, ये किसका नहीं करेंगे. तो गुड सेक्स होता है, एक बैड सेक्स होता है. सो दैट्स बेसिकली अबाउट कि गुड सेक्स है कि यू आर मैरिड, हेटेरोसेक्सुअल, और ये है मोनोगेमस है, रिप्रोडक्टिव है, ये है. और जो बैड सेक्स है वो बेसिकली जो लेस्बियंस है, वो ट्रांस पर्सन्स है, या जो करते हैं अनमैरिड हेटेरोसेक्सुअल कपल्स जो करते हैं, लिव इन पार्टनर्स जो करते हैं, ये सब बैड सेक्स है. मैं इसलिए ये कर रही हूँ क्योंकि जो एलजीबीटी डिस्कोर्स है वो हमारे जिंदगियों से अलग नहीं है, आपके जिंदगियों से अलग नहीं है. आपने भी शायद जिंदगी में कोई सेक्सुअल नॉर्म तोड़ा होगा. तो हम जब us and them करते हैं, when we talk about LGBT and them and us, we have to think that sexuality discourse is so strong and it is rooted in patriarchy so much that only that Mr. and Mrs. Tripathi having one son and one daughter, Mrs. Tripathi being the housewife, Mr. Tripathi being the dominant man, and a tall dominant man, and with a very big income, is the only person and having vanilla sex always, and then and doing everything that he is the only person I think who will be actually in like good sex category and in the charm circle. Rest of us who have fallen in love, who have had sex before marriage, who have kissed someone, who have chosen their own partners out of caste, out of religion, or actually watched pornography or watched whatever you have tried to do for pleasure, not for procreation, is actually are quote unquote perverts, and we are all together because we are all in the margins according to the society. And that's how sexual hierarchy is built. This is what I had to say.
Thank you, ma'am. We extend our sincerest appreciation for you gracing us with your esteemed presence during our session. And moving ahead, I would request Vibhuti ma'am to provide her remarks.
Yeah, I think.
Can I ask one question? Like, it is very, very important, and I really want Rituparna ma'am to answer it. Ma'am, just like I am telling from my own experience that I identify myself as a bisexual. Like, I cannot speak in a loud tone because I'm living with my family. Like, in ma'am, hospital, me like if I'm going for any kind of test, the doctor keep on repeatedly asking me ki, what is your sexual orientation, why you are coming for test, and then okay, you being a bi, you are actually not loyal, so तुम लोगों का हार्मोन तो बहुत ज्यादा डर मतलब ज्यादा वो होता रहता है, भागता रहता है. So ma'am, how we can actually handle this kind of harassment? Because you know, like at the end of the day, when we are going to a counselor or say to a doctor, when they keep on asking and when they keep on tormenting us with this type of question, we kind of interpolated, we kind of self curse ourselves कि मतलब गलती मेरी ही है, मतलब इसी के चक्कर में ही like I have to actually handle so much of discriminations and stigma. So ma'am, can you actually suggest some way to handle this kind of loneliness and the depression that is coming from the medical spaces? Because ma'am, बहुत painful हो जाता है फिर, मतलब किसी के साथ share भी नहीं कर पाते, and then I actually feel very, very isolated and claustrophobic because of this. So if you can suggest something.
I hear you and I understand. It's completely frustrating, and therefore I think we all wanted an anti-discrimination law before we moved ahead with marriage equality and other stuff. Anti-discrimination was much required, you know, and also we have had our mental health, the psychiatric department, Indian Psychiatric Association actually made a guideline saying that it is homosexuality is not an abnormal thing, and we have the memorandum with us. And actually it is this discriminatory. We can file cases against it, but the problem will be with you. You'll have to come out, and that will create a lot of trouble and stigma for you. That is the problem with the queer community. We all think that we are out and about, and some of us are not out. I really hear you, and please to reach out to any queer groups or any queer helpline that is there. I think you can give them the one in this that is operating the helpline, and they have to speak with someone, because going to a lawyer or doing an anti-discrimination thing might not be possible at this point of time because they'll be outed, especially by the media.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes, continuing with what I was saying, Professor Vibhuti Patel, I would request you to.
Yeah, I think Rituparna, you're very, very scathing and also very sharp presentation, and also this whole thing about the Gail Rubin's sexual hierarchy. I think you have explained. But then how to cope up? I think my question was also just the same, that the guilt and also incarceration. What are the strategies to cope with or to combat incarceration that happens maybe by the criminal justice system more, but otherwise also the professional insensitivity? Yesterday we got this two presentations. One was by Dr. Veena Vaswani, and she explained the kind of atmosphere and the ecosystem they have in the hospital. Even Dr. Aksa, she told her personal experience of being a medical practitioner. So two medical practitioners on the panel, they discussed so many horrific incidences. So how do we reach out to these professional bodies? With the lawyers?
I think we have to reach out through the practitioners themselves. So we have to, I think, go through the practitioners, for example, the gynecologist body or the body that is working on Indian Psychiatrists Association. We can get in touch with the good psychiatrist or the good gynecologist or the good MBBS general physicians, and then ask them to help us. And that will be a good thing if IMPRI, because it's very well known and people do know you, if you can reach out to all these doctors and have a consultation with the community. Because see, all of us can't fight the battles legally, but some sort of sensitization within the communities for the doctors, especially for the doctors, because see, ये सिर्फ उसकी बात नहीं है, sexual problems की बात नहीं है. Simple cold and cough के लिए लोग नहीं जाते, क्योंकि cold and cough के लिए भी अगर आपको MRI करानी है या chest X-ray करानी है, अगर आप transmasculine person हो, है ना, आप binder पहनते हैं, तो पता चल जाएगा कि आप quote unquote female assigned at birth हो. So इसीलिए नहीं जाते, और they actually try to avoid. So here in Delhi, we are trying to find out good doctors who are not just for gender affirmative surgeries. The problem is that we are too fixated on identities. We're too fixated on only for gender identities, gender affirmative surgeries. We should find doctors who are for everything. For a simple khasi zukam, or what are the good MRI centers, what are the good X-ray centers, what are the good blood lene wale doctors, you know, like all these things. That referral system need to be created, and we have to reach out to doctors.
Right.
With mom's due permission, I think we can open. Yeah, we have a few questions.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Anna ji, you could you unmute yourself, or I'm happy to read the question out loud or the comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rituparna ji, for this wonderful presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I was just thinking at this point that it somehow seems easier to initiate a conversation on sexual hierarchy or sexual equity in workplaces or in our classes or in colleges or workplaces than in families, right? So it's like the moment you start talking about any of these things, you are snubbed and dubbed as stubborn or impossible. So I was just wondering, like, in all these years of my life, as much as possible, whenever you bring in the topic itself, it's a totally different aura, rather, I would say. So just wanted to hear your opinion about the same. Like, it's almost like an everyday kind of facing
reality. Totally, I agree with you again. Because we are one of the co-petitioners in a marriage equality petition, and our petition is not on coupledom again. Our petition starts from the fact that natal family violence is a reality, and we should have the right to exit natal family violence.
Right.
And we should have the right to form our chosen families. Trust me, when some of the lawyers talked about that our family support us, we were like, no, because Uma Chakravarti once talked about the fact that the violence that happened within the family is actually custodial violence. we are within the custody of the family. हमारा पढ़ाई का खर्चा वो देते हैं, हमारा खाना का खर्चा वो दे देते हैं, ये है वो है वैसा है, and the inherent connection to a family is so strong कि हमारे crisis intervention में भी कहीं ना कहीं इतना मार खाने के बाद भी बच्चे वापस जाना चाहते हैं, because this whole thing, you know, the education curriculum is bad because it taught us to love our parents, respect our parents. Parents bhalai karte hai. Even the police, they understand that husband violence karte hai. They do not understand that parents violence karte hai. This is the kind of thing that we have to talk. And I don't have any strategies, but the strategy is small. Start small. Do not go big. I always tell everyone, start small with small conversations. Do not go big. We don't know what parents can do. We have seen parents committing murder. Recently in UP, just recently in UP, a lesbian woman was killed by tantric because of the parents. So please, yeah, thank you.
Rituparna ji, I have shared the report on that family violence by PUCL, NAS Foundation and others, and also the helpline and the chat box for the participants.
Yes. Do we have any more questions? Check. The participants are free to raise their hands or type their questions out.
Even today, sharing has happened from the very beginning. So even sharing of experiences, first time it has happened. Otherwise, they were only asking questions. So this
I'm really happy. I'm really happy.
And we are happy to make it interactive. So yes, please raise your hands and let's end it on the same note. You know, that's on the same note we started the session. So yeah, please go ahead. Let's wait. Okay, this will be my final call for any sort of interaction the participants would like to have with our panelists and our chair. You can share your experience or, you know, make it interactive. We are happy to answer.
I was actually worried because I was the last speaker. I'm like, kaun rahega itna raat tak?
Commitment here very high commitment. They don't even switch off. No, continuously they are engaging.
Yeah, the first session especially, right, Vibhuti?
Yeah, and it's also on public demand. It was demanded by the younger generation. So
yeah. So if we don't have any further questions, I would honestly request the participants to you know, bear with us as we are still waiting for Vajanti ji. She had some personal family emergency, so we're still waiting for her. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So if Rituparna ma'am is free, we could interact, but if not, you know, we don't want to hold you back. Any questions, any sort of interaction the participants would like to have, guys?
Okay.
Oh, we have.
Yeah,
we have a question. Yeah. So it's from Priyanka ji. Can we sue our parents when they force us to get married?
Yeah. You can. Let's go.
Have there been any cases? One has heard about it in America and Europe, but in India,
no, there are no restriction wala case, essay restraining order, but you can sue your parents.
But because there was a boy in Mumbai and even the doctors were very supportive, my friend's husband, and he was ready to do the surgery on that. But IAS officer parents, they prevailed upon him that he was taken back to Assam and doctors could not do anything.
No, and also if they force you to get married, you can actually, you can leave your home and you can ask for protection orders, and then you can actually forcing someone to get married is domestic violence, which will be if you are a woman, If you're assigned female at birth, if you're a woman, it will be under the Domestic Violence Act of 2006. And you can actually sue, but not sue in a sue, because domestic violence is a civil this thing. But if they break the thing, then it becomes criminal. So so if you can actually file a case under Domestic Violence Act, or you can actually get a protection order against your parents, from your parents. Both of the things can happen, which is not so difficult.
The protection order in the POCSO is very easy to get.
No, POCSO is easy, but also if you're an adult, you can get protection orders from courts. From courts you can get, and also from police stations and courts and all you can get. Restraining order is not there in India.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should get restraining orders also.
Yeah.
But police really takes protection orders seriously in Delhi, at least that I know.
You mean habeas corpus?
No, just protection orders. Habeas corpus is when the people goes missing. No, then we file habeas corpus. Protection order is when you say that I'm facing violence and I feel that my brother is causing me trouble and this thing, and I want protection from this person. Then we file it in the High Court of Delhi for protection from family, and then we get protection orders, and then they just have to report to the next police station they're living in, and then that's it. So couples have also, like lesbian couples have also got live-in this thing, protections. Yeah.
This is very useful information, especially for the minors. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have one more question for ma'am. What about male assigned at birth if they are non-binary or cisgender and they're forced to get married? I think it's in regard to the. Okay, it's in the webinar chat wala section. The question is, what about male assigned at birth if they are non-binary or cisgender and they are forced to get married?
They are what? Forced to get married.
Forced to get married.
Forced to get married. You can try actually. Mostly it's female assigned at birth. It's easy, but you can actually try. No one can force you to do anything in this country. It just, you can try and go to the police and say that you have been forced. Try talking to a lawyer. It's easy. Get in touch with helplines. No one can force you to do anything. You have to just leave your home. When you leave your home, check our Instagram page. There are some guidelines when you leave your home, what you need to carry with us. It's nazaria.qfrg. Just check your home, check what you have to carry with you. And then call helplines. They will help you what you have to carry, what you don't have to carry, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I think it won't be difficult to at least not get married. यार मतलब कौन तुम्हें जोर जबरदस्ती कर सकता है if you're an adult?
Yeah, it's 2023, so I do have a very it's a very naive question, I think, on my part, but yeah.
Nothing is naive, huh?
It is kind of naive. So my question is, in the Indian context, what according to you can an ally, do in order in order to support the community, just a very general.
Yeah. The first of all is pass the mic. The second is respect the fact that there is LGBT is not a monolith. So understand the fact that it is a very intersectional, very diverse group. So yeah, that's it. First of all, that's it. Just pass the mic. Understand it's not. It's not a monolith. When you actually ask people, just look at their caste, class, location, ethnic location, and see if you are inclusive enough. Things like that. Yeah.
And I was looking into a few organizations I could be a part of, say volunteer or just engage with organizations are dealing with LGBTQIA plus rights and stuff. If you could shed light into that, I'm sure there are people in the I think in here who would like to hear about it. And I know it's very basic and very it's a very general question, but still if you could answer it.
Currently, I think we are not taking any volunteer interns, but I think for volunteer, everyone is ready. You just have to write to us at info@nazaria.ufrd.org. I think that's it. If anyone wants to get information, that's our Instagram handle, nazaria.qfrg.
Yeah.
That's our Instagram handle. Yeah.
And you also have a website, no, which I have shared the link. Yeah.
No, that's not the website. It's
one is a website, no, Nazaria Photo.
no,
Hyderabad.
that's not.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I'll be saving the
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to say bye.
Thank you for your
Have a
time, ma'am.
Okay.
We loved having you here. Thank you.
I love talking, and I'm glad that people spoke. I
Yeah.
was a little worried. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Just
Bye.
quite interactive. Bye.
Bye.
I
Yeah.
Professor Patel, will we be waiting for ma'am?
Now it's already 9 o'clock.
Yeah, what should we do?
She's just joining. I'm just talking to.
It's joining.
Okay.
Yes, she has even shared some PDFs, so I think she is joining.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a minute. It's a request to it, everyone. Let's just wait for a minute. Yeah. Just bear with us.
There is a question by Ria on sexuality and sexual orientation. No, once again. So where sexuality, as she said, it's a norm, the social norm. What is good and what is bad? Who is a good woman? Who is bad woman? What should be, because the way she showed us that circle, no? You if you want to be in the favored circle, how would you behave? And if you want to be in a quote unquote deviant circle, how would you behave? The sexuality comes out of the gender norms and gender stereotypes of heteronormativity, where the sexual orientation is that who would you like to be intimate with? No? So that, but that is also decided by the kind of indoctrination that you have had. But sexual orientation is that your intimate relationship with whom you would like to, that is a sexual orientation. With which gender, or with that whole gender spectrum that you have, in that with whom would you like to be intimate with, while the sexuality is much more than sex, because it is about the social norms which are determined by the religion and custom and family and kinship and do's and don'ts and so-called achar samhita, code of conduct that each and every community has. Hamare mein aisa, aap mein aisa. So that kind. So yeah. Thank you. You can download those PDFs which are there in the chat box, no? Yeah.
Achha, the PDFs that Vasita just shared in the chat box, they have been shared by Vajanti ma'am. She could please look into it, and it's a reminder. We are waiting for Vajanti ma'am to join us. We'll be waiting for a minute or two. We are really sorry about all the inconvenience this has caused, and yeah, we're waiting for her.
When report on familial violence, you can download it, and it was already I think there.
Ma'am is here.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah.
Yes. So Vajanti is in. Yeah.
Yes.
Sam, you can start with the introduction. Go ahead, Sam.
Yes. So now I would, yes. So now I would request Vajanti Asanta Mowgli ji to take the session forward. Mowgli ji is a LGBTQI plus activist and the founding member, Telangana Hijra Transgender Samiti, Health and Horizontal Reservation, Litigation and Advocacy in India. Over to you.
May I start now?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And my apologies for the back and forth. I'm going through a severe emergency and a lot of a bit of an exigency of my father's precarious health, teetering on the precipice of perilous possibilities. That's the reason. Jumping quickly into horizontal reservations for transgender persons. Without much ado, horizontal reservations, there are, with reference to horizontal reservations, there are two very important Supreme Court judgments that guide us here. These two judgments are Saurav Yadav versus State of Uttar Pradesh, that was recently delivered in December 2020, and it dealt with horizontal reservations for women. And there's another one, Indira Sani and others versus Union of India and others, which is a fairly well-established one that was delivered almost 31 years ago in November 1992. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritties, I'm not going to explain who transgender persons are. I'm sure you have had quite a few sessions on gender, sexuality, and a whole lot of other things. And I will only focus on reservations, particularly on horizontal reservations. Now, our constitution lays down the framework of affirmative action, and now horizontal reservations are, this is a word used by the Supreme Court, by the Honorable Supreme Court. Although it may sound unidimensional, it's actually not unidimensional in the way it is practiced now. It is bidimensional. It has two dimensions. Be it horizontal reservations that women have across state governments, women across various state governments have granted horizontal reservations to women, although the government of India has yet to do that. The government of India and the central services has not. Persons with disabilities have horizontal reservations, and this cuts across the disability reservation and gender-based reservation. So while disability reservation operates vertically, the gender-based reservation, whether they are male or female, will operate horizontally. Interestingly, the Supreme Court has used the term horizontal reservations, and for a lay person, it may sound like a unidimensional reservation. It is not. It is horizontal reservations means the intersection of vertical and horizontal reservations, which is intersectional reservation, and it's bidimensional. And this is practiced across central and state governments with reference to persons with disabilities. They are able to avail disability reservation as well as their gender-based horizontal reservation. Disability reservation operating vertically, and the gender-based reservation, whether they are male or female, operating horizontally. And as I said earlier, women are only able to partake in horizontal reservations only at the level of state governments. The government of India has not finalized, has not enacted, nor has it notified any law granting horizontal, that is both vertical and horizontal reservations to women in the central services. Now, we'll go back to these two judgments that I mentioned earlier, which are Indira Sani and others versus Union of India, delivered in November 1992, the first one. This laid a ceiling, a limit of 50%. That is, reservations must not go beyond 50% is what the Supreme Court laid down. So all the reservations granted should be within that ceiling, within that limit of 50% is what the Supreme Court laid down in Indra, Sani and others versus Union of India. However, state governments like the Tamil Nadu, government of Tamil Nadu and quite a few other state governments have circumvented this judgment as well through other legal recourses. They have managed to circumvent this judgment. Now, the very recent one, Saurav Yadav versus the state of Uttar Pradesh, in this judgment that was delivered in December 2020, Saurav Yadav challenged the fact that he had a much higher score than a few women who had a lesser score than him, and his rank was better in terms of performance, and yet he did not get a seat while the other women got a seat over him. And to this, the Supreme Court dismissed his challenge and upheld horizontal reservations. It said that insofar as state governments have granted horizontal reservations, women shall enjoy both vertical and horizontal reservations within their caste verticals. So, for example, if an OBC woman from a certain caste category enjoys vertical reservation, she will also enjoy horizontal reservation within that vertical, so that she does not. Women don't compete with men, women only compete with women. I mean, this is how horizontal reservations work, to ensure that women are not made to compete with men. It also works well in services where there is physical endurance, physical efficiency, and physical measurements test, because in police services, it would be very unfair to make women compete with men. But even otherwise, this is the scheme of things as of now with many state governments, where women do not compete with men, women compete with women, and women compete with women of their caste grouping. That is, OBC women compete with OBC women, and scheduled caste women compete with scheduled caste women. Scheduled tribe women compete with scheduled tribe women. So scheduled caste women do not compete with OBC women. So this way they are segregated, and this in the constitutional legal framework ensures that those who are further marginalized on grounds of caste do not end up competing with a higher caste grouping, and even that holds good for women as well. It ensures that there is higher representation and lesser competition, but there is competition within the caste grouping. Within that caste umbrella, there will be competition. Now, I've only spoken about horizontal reservations with reference to women till now. I haven't even started speaking about horizontal reservations that transgender persons are asking for. Now, I slowly move to the transgender demand for horizontal reservations. The Nalsa judgment, which was a historic judgment delivered in April 2014, the operative part of that judgment, it is etched in my mind. It says that transgender persons be granted all kinds of reservations as socially and educationally backward classes. There are many other parts of the operative part of that judgment in the last 3-4 pages. I'm not delving into that because it deals with many other things. It deals with self-identification. It deals with a separate transgender category, which holds good for horizontal reservations. It deals with serosurveillance, healthcare, and so on. So I'm not getting into healthcare. I'm not getting into serosurveillance. I'm only dealing with reservations, that bit of the Nalsa judgment that deals with reservations, where it recognizes transgender persons and mandates the central and state governments and appropriate governments to recognize transgender persons as socially and educationally backward classes and extend all kinds of reservations. Now, Article 15(3), Section 3 speaks of reservations. It speaks of reservations for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and socially and educationally backward classes. Now, which means that socially and educationally backward classes are not scheduled caste, nor are they scheduled tribe, because Article 15(3) refers to scheduled caste, comma, scheduled tribe, and socially and educationally backward classes. So in policy formulation, socially and educationally backward classes is translated into other backward classes at the state level. I mean, central level, it's called other backward classes. States call it backward castes. In some states, it's called MBC as well. In Tamil Nadu, it's called most backward classes. So the nomenclature may differ. Central government calls it OBC. Many states call it BC. Some states call it MBC, most backward classes. Now we are confronted with a huge problem. The NALSA judgment on the one hand says that transgender should be a separate category, that transgender persons should be free to identify as either male or female or as transgender, and that transgender should be a separate category in all forms, all notifications of the central and state governments, in all establishments. It's not limited to just the central and state governments. It covers all establishments, workplace, schools, private sector, everything. And on the other hand, when it came to reservations, the Supreme Court enjoined upon the central and state governments to recognize transgender persons as socially and educationally backward classes. Here's the conflict. Here is the conflict. Transgender identities, transgender persons are not a caste grouping, as much as women are all not from one caste. Women are from various caste groupings. So they could be a Gujjar, Jat, Brahmin, Rajput, Dalit, Chamar, Mahar, Balmiki, many caste groupings within which women also exist. They could be scheduled castes, they could be scheduled tribes, they could be other backward classes, they could be from EWS, economically weak sections, not necessarily based on caste, but on economically weak section. So women are not a caste category. Women come from various caste groupings and caste identities. Similar is the case of transgender persons. Now, here, this is the demand as well as the jurisprudence that many transgender persons and communities are trying to build, that the Supreme Court, in its wisdom in 2014, in all its good intent, wanted to offer some form of affirmative action. But anything done the first time, whether we wrote an essay the first time, whether we cycled the first time, or drove a car, or cooked, or tutored, or lectured, or did a painting, anything done the first time will have its own inadequacies, failings, shortcomings. It may be very well intentioned, but anything done the first time will have its own inadequacies and flaws. So the Supreme Court too may have perhaps, we can't really guess what was going on in the minds of judges at that point of time, but the result was that it was a bit of a flawed judgment, because it conflicted with itself. On the one side, the Supreme Court laid down that transgender should be a separate category in all government notifications, central, state, public-private partnerships, workplaces, establishments. And on the other side, the Supreme Court said they should be recognized as socially and educationally backward classes. And within that, it said, and be given all kinds of reservations. So that judgment, the operative part of the judgment, is in conflict with itself, and it needs to be clarified. Now, if some states, for example, Tamil Nadu, as early as in 2015, through a certain geo that it issued, I forget the number, it grouped transgender persons as one of the most backward classes, and it issued a geo. Till date, not a single transgender person has been able to avail reservation through that, because transgender persons, as I said, are not a caste category. There are multiple marginalizations and a diversity of marginalizations and vulnerabilities and that transgender persons face, owing out of their diverse caste backgrounds. So to say that, I forget the name of that American capitalist ex-sportswoman, trans woman, I forget her name, to say that somebody born into the silver spoon of capitalism could have been born into a business family like Adani's or Ambani's, hypothetically, faces the same amount of repression and oppression and marginalization as an average transgender woman begging on the roads, at traffic signals, in trains, doing sex work at night, is an oversimplification. The urban Indian woman, the educated Indian woman working at a Wall Street giant, faces different level of exclusion as compared to the average Indian woman. The average Indian woman is definitely not the Wall Street giant trotting, globe trotting, flight hopping Indian woman. The average Indian woman in the rural setting is the landless agricultural laborer toiling day in and day out with a baby or children by her side, with a baby tied up to her, and the construction laborer in the urban setting, or the domestic worker in the urban setting. To say that all women face equal amount of oppression, suppression, vulnerability, marginalization, to my mind and to the mind of those of us who think this way, is an oversimplification. We are, there is a clear difference in our backgrounds, in our generational privileges of caste and class and many other privileges. And that is no different with transgender persons either. So here, there are a whole series of judgments and some interim orders that our transgender activists have managed to wrestle out of high courts in the last 8 years or 9 years since the Nalsa judgment. Sorry, I'm going on and on. Are you all with me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
Yes,
I will wrap it up in another 15-20 minutes, and then you can ask me questions. You can start noting your questions down. So till here, we've spoken about the conflict within the Nalsa judgment of separate transgender category mandated in all notifications, forms of the central state governments, all public institutions, and even private institutions, workplaces, private sector, schools, colleges, universities, everywhere. And on the other side, the dichotomy of grouping transgender persons in the public sector under socially and educationally backward classes. And within that point, to further go to say, extend all kinds of reservations. This is another phrase within the Nalsa judgment, all kinds of reservations. So this is a bit of a dichotomy because it is conflicting with itself. Now, we will move from the Nalsa judgment to some headway and some historic headway successes and even historic defeats that transgender persons fighting for horizontal reservations have had. So, 1 minute. Way back in 2016, there was a judgment of the Madras High Court in Swapna versus Chief Secretary, which dealt with horizontal reservations. This was just soon after the Nalsa judgment. And while it did not quash the GO of the Tamil Nadu government that grouped transgender persons and the most backward classes, it gave limited relief to the petitioner Swapna, to where the High Court said that reserve the seat of this girl to ensure that she does not suffer because of this, because of the lacuna in the law. So this was one of the judgments soon after the Nalsa judgment in Swapna versus Chief Secretary of 2016 Madras High Court. Then in Sharada versus Member Secretary Tamil Nadu Uniform Services Recruitment Board, TNUSRB, Sharada versus Member Secretary, which is also a writ petition of the Madras High Court. Sharada was given a favorable judgment by the Madras High Court, which did not quash. I mean, the relief given to Sharada was again limited to just her case, where her seat was reserved, and the Madras High Court did order the Tamil Nadu government to enact a legislation and a GO to grant horizontal reservations. This they did, but I think the Madras High Court did not quash the earlier GO, the government order of the Tamil Nadu government that grouped transgender persons as most backward classes. That is yet operational. In Sharada versus Member Secretary Tamil Nadu Uniform Services Recruitment Board, the court went a step beyond Swapna versus Chief Secretary. In Swapna versus Chief Secretary, while Swapna's seat was reserved, the court was silent about horizontal reservations at a structural level. In Sharada versus Member Secretary, the court went a few steps further. It ordered the Tamil Nadu government to enact a legislation and issue government orders to upholding horizontal reservations for transgender persons. However, this judgment too could have gone further. It did not quash, it did not say anything about the GO of 2015 of the Tamil Nadu government that grouped transgender persons under most backward classes. Then came S. Tamar Selvi versus Secretary to Government and others. This is also a judgment of the Madras High Court, where her seat was reserved, where there is an order issued to the Tamil Nadu government on horizontal reservations, but it stops there. These are a few judgments of the Madras High Court. I will now move on to some interim orders because these are ongoing cases. The cases have not, the final judgments are awaited, but a whole slew of interim orders. In Telangana, my home state, there were 5 applicants, transgender persons who applied to police constable and SI roles in May 2022. In May 2022, the notification issued did not have a transgender option, while the Nalsa judgment was delivered in April 2014. 8 years, 1 month later, too, the Telangana government did not have a transgender option. Not just that, the Telangana state level police recruitment board, it is in short called TSLP-RB. TSLP-RB further in the notification as well as in the application form further mandated all applicants, quote, apply in complete accordance with your 10th class certificates, unquote. I'm literally quoting out of the notification and the application form. It mandated all applicants to apply in complete accordance with their 10th class certificates. Now, transgender persons in their 10th class certificate, they wouldn't be transgender, they would be in their dead gender, which is either male or female. So trans women who have transitioned from male to female or male to transgender had were force-fitted to apply, were coerced to apply as male. Can you imagine? All of them had undergone their sex reassignment surgery. The age group of these petitioners, these applicants, was between the age of 24 to 30, all of them, between the age of 24 to 30. The youngest had undergone her surgery some 5-6 years ago, soon after she turned 18. The oldest, who was 30, underwent her surgery some 10 years ago, where they have no testosterone, they have no male genitalia. No male genitalia, hence no testosterone. And they were coerced to apply as male purely because the Telangana State Level Police Recruitment Board did not have a transgender option. And it further mandated in the notification and in the application form that all applicants apply in complete accordance with their 10th class certificates. Clearly, in the 10th class certificates, they were all male, so they had to apply as male. What did this mean? This had wider, unfair, illegal and unethical ramifications for transgender petitioners. With no male genitalia, with not a trace of testosterone in their body as compared to males, as compared to those who are competing as males, cisgender males, they had to compete with men in the physical endurance, physical efficiency and measurements tests. How fair is that? They have no male genitalia. They are not buttressed by testosterone anymore. And while women had to run 800 meters in a stipulated time, men had to run 1,600 meters in a shorter period of time. And these trans women who have no male genitalia, no testosterone, were made to compete with 6 feet 4 inch, 6 feet 2 inch tall men. How fair is that? They had to have a separate transgender category. So all of them moved court. They wrote, I helped them write those representations. They moved court. The court ordered, in the interim order, the court ordered the Telangana State Level Police Recruitment Board. There were 4 respondents: Chief Secretary, Home Secretary, Principal Secretary, Home, Chief Secretary of the State, Director General of Police, and the Chairperson, Telangana State Level Police Recruitment Board, to come up with a comprehensive policy and reservation for transgender persons within 2 weeks. 2 weeks passed, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, nothing happened. They didn't move an inch. The petitioners further appealed to court because they all feared their prelims and they were bound to fail in the physical endurance test because they was being set up for failure. They were being made to compete with men who have complete male genitalia and are fully flushed with testosterone, while our girls are not. So on the interim orders of the court, these trans women, trans persons, they were made to write the mains exam, although they couldn't clear their physical and efficiency endurance tests. Some of them barely cleared, or 4 of them out of the 6, 4 of them failed, and not their fault at all. Not their fault at all. Would it be fair to make women compete with men? We are not asking for trans women to be made to compete with women. We are asking for a separate category. It is the duty of all state governments and the central government to establish the selection criteria medically, physically for transgender persons that is separate from cisgender men and cisgender women. And what were the state governments doing since 8-9 years? So now they have written their mains and the case is going on. They are awaiting their results. Devat, Tanushri and others versus State of Telangana. This is another historic case that's ongoing and historic interim orders that I've referred to. Then there's another case of Dr. Koyala Ruth John Paul, transgender woman who's a doctor who applied for NEET PG entrance. And she qualified In 2022, she chose gynecology, first preference, general medical medicine, second preference, and something else, emergency medicine or something as a third preference. And none of her preferences, despite her getting qualified, she could not get that rank that the men and women, the cutoff for men and women was different. There was no transgender cutoff at all. Despite the Supreme Court judgment, there was no transgender. She was subsumed under women because while they had a separate category as transgender on the form, it did not mean anything in the back end. At the front end, there was a transgender option. As compared to the police constables didn't even have a transgender option. In the medical postgraduate exam, there was an option on the form transgender, but it didn't result in anything at the back end, because if the cutoff is different for men across castes and for women across castes, there has to be some transgender cutoff. There was no cutoff. She was subsumed under women. She was subsumed. And she didn't get a seat at all, despite her very good, as compared to her caste grouping of women, she was yet, she should have got a seat had she been categorized as transgender. But because that didn't happen, she didn't. So Dr. Koyala Ruth John Paul moved the High Court in February itself. The High Court gave a mild final judgment. It wasn't very stern. The initial judgment of the division bench was recommending that her candidature be considered. It was not a judgment based on merits. And then she had to move the High Court again very recently, and I've shared that judgment, wherein the Chief Justice of the Telangana High Court, this just happened this week itself, said that had there been a separate transgender category in the reservation roster, this girl would have definitely got a seat. The transgender person would have definitely got a seat. The National Medical Commission said, not our fault. There was the fourth respondent, said, not our fault. We just go by what the government of India and the state governments lay down. They haven't issued a GO. Not the Chief Justice said, not the petitioner's fault either. Why should the petitioner suffer for this? What were the state governments doing for 9 long years, twiddling their thumbs? And this was precisely what the CJ said in the hearings. So while the larger question of horizontal reservations remains unanswered, and that's a lot of work to do, what the CJ did in the interim order was that the petitioner should not suffer because of the dereliction of duty of the central and state governments. The petitioner should not suffer and should not get footballed around the many respondents, because the the National Medical Commission and the medical universities will just wash their hands off, saying we don't have anything, any GO or legislation that we can follow. So the CJ said, the Chief Justice of the Telangana High Court said that her seat be reserved and in ways that is beneficial to the career and the interests of the candidate. And this was the interim order that I have shared as well. So there are many other interim orders. Arya Pujari case in Maharashtra too. This was on police recruitment. And Vinayak something, I forget the last name. These cases too are ongoing, where the Bombay High Court is hearing these cases. As of now, until Justice Dipankar Datta was the CJ, I think it was there were a slew of interim orders, and now with the judges to get either promoted or they retire or they get transferred. Now it has slowed down a little bit, but it's yet it's an ongoing case. So these are cases that will need to be closely watched. And the larger question of horizontal reservations, what is happening right now is just piecemeal. Case by case, people are fighting for relief. We need to have structural changes. If women, and many women across very many states, are availing horizontal reservations, and if women are availing horizontal reservations, men are availing as well. Because if certain percentage is segregated for women as horizontal intersectional reservations, what is left? Whatever is left is being availed by men, and women don't enter that. So men are also availing intersectional, that is horizontal reservations. If both men and women are availing it and having a lovely pie out of the, having a share out of the lovely share out of the pie, what crime, what sins have transgender persons done? This is the same argument that we hold for marriage equality as well. Marriage may be flawed, marriage may be pious, marriage may be sacred, marriage may be anything. The left may call marriage a outdated institution, the right wing may call marriage a sacred institution. We are not bothered about these false binaries, political binaries, ideological binaries. Insofar as marriage as an institution exists, it must be made available for all. The same argument we hold for reservations. Insofar as reservation exists as affirmative action, all marginalized communities, disenfranchised communities, historically vulnerable, marginalized, disenfranchised, should be able to partake in it. If we were able to include EWS, economically weak sections, who were not included earlier, what stops the central and state governments from including transgender persons? With this, I call it a talk, and I hand it over to you for questions.
No.
Thank you for an thank you for an insightful session, Vasanthi Mogli ji. We are sincerely grateful for your invaluable contribution and the profound impact it had in our collective experience. Thank you for being part of our voyage. Thank you very much, despite the time constraints and the situation in hand. I request Professor Vibhuti Patel to provide her remarks.
Yeah. Thank you, Vasanthi ji, for extremely powerful presentation about the affirmative action and also the historical injustices which have happened to compensate for that. Constitution of India has empowered, like Article 53 also talks about affirmative action and how the trans community is using this affirmative action. I think all these important cases which you cited of Telangana, government of Telangana, Tamil Nadu government and Maharashtra, also we have in the police recruitment. Most of them are vis-a-vis state versus civilian, okay? But what about the private sector? How can we sensitize? Because it's only 6% of the workforce is in the government sector, where the statutory laws, the labor laws are applicable. But what about the Fortune 500 companies? What about the small MSMEs, medium and small scale industry? Everywhere you see this kind of discrimination is happening. Can we bring them to the book, or can we bring them to the court? No? Are there any such examples where non-state actors have been questioned or have been brought to the legal purview?
Should I answer this?
Yeah.
Now? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. That's a very important question, because bulk of the employment is not necessarily with the public sector. Bulk of the employment is with the private sector, the disorganized, unorganized sector. That is very true. We'll, from the organized private sector, I'll then answer, then move on to the unorganized sector. In the organized private sector, be it the large Wall Street giants, or the MSMEs, the startups, what we already have a certain laws that we must use, that I think transgender persons, transgender employees, transgender persons must know their rights and responsibilities, not just rights and responsibilities. KYRR, know your rights and responsibilities. So as part of that, they must undergo training on POSH, prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. They must undergo training on the Transgender Act and rules. The Transgender Act lays down that every employer must have a complaints officer. Every employer be it public or private, must have a complaints officer to take the complaints of transgender persons. So how many private establishments have, private or even public, have appointed a complaints officer under the Transgender Act and rules? So these are things that we must apply and check at workplaces. How many workplaces have sensitized their workforces to to treat transgender colleagues equally? Before a workplace hires transgender persons, does that workplace sensitize itself and its workforce to treat transgender persons equally? This wouldn't be any different from sensitizing an existing workforce on the rights of persons with disabilities. So our language itself, be it English or any other Indian language, often when somebody says something that we don't approve of, that we may find not so quote unquote intelligent, we end up saying, oh, what a dumb question. Oh, is he blind? What a dumb question. Now, that kind of ableist language, if we have colleagues who are persons with disabilities, we will need to sensitize ourselves and our colleagues. Similarly, we will also need to sensitize our existing workforce, our colleagues, our higher ups, our peers and subordinates, everybody, so that, and this is not a one-time effort, this should be an ongoing effort, similar to prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. Each time a new employee joins, a set of new employees join, they're onboarded, they are oriented, they are trained on prevention of sexual harassment at workplace of either men, women, where in a gender neutral way, sexual harassment of women, men, and transgender persons, of all persons. Then private sector should perhaps, the government of India, as policy makers, as think tanks, we should lobby with our state governments, our local governments, our central government is a big effort. But I think at a local level, at a state level, because private companies, Wall Street giants, even Indian companies, they operate in states, right? So we should lobby with our state governments to have them incentivize, not reservation, but incentivize private companies to employ transgender persons, to employ marginalized communities, be it transgender persons, acid attack survivors, persons with disabilities, and so on. But what else can I think of in terms of now moving to
selection committee, because the main gatekeeping happens at the level of selection committee, recruitment, no? So
yes,
any code of conduct for the recruitment agents, recruitment
they
bodies.
will have to be trained. It's not a one-time training. They will have to be trained to, I'll give you an example. There are some organizations that ask for a photograph of the applicant on the resume. Why should they need a photograph unless it's the job of an actress or a model? No, I mean, in universities or in Wall Street giants, why would they need photographs if these are desk jobs? Yeah. So firstly, I think it should be, we should all be agnostic about how people look, about their looks, unless that business is based on looks.
Correct.
Unless it's a model or an air hostess's job where people need to look very presentable and very, alluring and attractive. But any other job like IT software, IT, ITES, PPO, chartered accountant's job, a lawyer's job has nothing to do with a person's look. So, I mean, these are things that are coming to the top of my mind at recruitment. And there are times when transgender persons feel very dysphoric. For example, right now, I am very gender dysphoric right now. because I have had to run helter-skelter for my father's medical emergency, and I just couldn't think of coming. I mean, I just couldn't want to come on video. And we face this because you see, we are male bodies that are getting feminized. So on certain days, we would look very prim and proper. On other days, we would look I mean, in my own eyes, I'm not talking about other people. I don't like myself the way I look on certain days because I look like like a scarecrow. So, I mean, this is not limited to me. Many transgender persons feel their level of gender dysphoria keeps changing. So, as long as the work is not getting affected, as long as the work is not getting affected, the quality and the quantum of work is not adversely affected, we must make reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation, the principle of reasonable accommodation, we draw heavily out of disability jurisprudence. We see, we don't stand where we are all by ourselves. We stand firmly on the shoulders, strong shoulders lent to us by earlier generations of women's rights activists, by disability rights activists, by caste equality activists, because their struggles are decades older than ours. So it's not as though we all did it all by ourselves. No, be it this jurisprudence principle of reasonable accommodation or prevention of sexual harassment, the jurisprudence that we heavily draw out of the women's rights movement.
Correct. And yes.
Any other question?
Thank you, ma'am. The floor is open for questions. The participants are free to ask questions.
Who can see somebody type a question? I'm trying to read it. There was one. Who can see what was this? It just flashed and it disappeared.
No question.
I would strongly suggest raising hands over typing right now, given we are running quite late. So, yes, do we have any questions from participants? Yeah, I don't think we have any.
Yeah.
All right then. Thank you so much.
I think we all have been enchanted by and intellectually charged. So many new ideas you have given. And I think now all those judgments which you have mentioned, I think we all will be reading the text of it in Manusmriti, another website. I think it is going to be a very crash course on the legal activism that we have. And I really, it's very humbling to listen to you and your acknowledgement that you are standing on the shoulder of women's rights movement, disability rights movement, Dalit rights movement. I think this is the humility which all of us need to have about, then only we can build the bridges and we can have a solidarity among so many intersectionally vulnerable sections of the society, and we can fight against such oppressive order. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We thank you for attending the session, ma'am.
Yeah.
Your insightful comments, remarkable presence, and efforts were priceless, and we are truly grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ma'am, with your due permission, I would like to go ahead with today's closing remarks.
Yes, yes. Okay. So my closing remarks is only this, that now we have moved one step ahead where we are discussing some of the most mind-boggling ground level problems, because it's starting with Dr. Pratiti Barman's this thing, her study based on a qualitative in-depth interviews of gay cis men, and also the question of peer rights at workplace in the corporate world, Mr. Harish Nair's struggle at the workplace, and also Rituparna ji's whole very volatile session on the sexuality and gender in the other developmental issues. And finally, the so many cases of horizontal reservation policy. First of all, the philosophy of reservation policy, logic of reservation policy, and the practical problems that an activist or a litigant faces at by knocking at the doors of high courts or Supreme Courts. I think these are very, very important lived experiences that we have gone into. And I think it has given us so many useful tips to handle similar challenges in our own lives. I think so. That's what I see it as a merit of today's session. Extremely important for fighting multifaceted battles for the for any marginalized community and in general, and transgender community or the queer community in particular. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Should I go ahead with the vote of thanks?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. As we come to the end of day 4 of Beyond Binaries, Understanding Sexual Identities and Queer Rights Issues in India, an online international summer school program, a 5-day immersive online certificate training course, I, Samriddhi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC, New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for the Day 4 session, Vaijanti Vasanta Mogliji, Dr. Pratiti Barmanji, Harish Ayarji, and Rituparna Boraji, for taking out their valuable time and giving us an opportunity along with the participants to learn from this online certificate course. We thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel Ma'am, for convening the session. Recorded video of the session have been shared in your email, and video of the session will also be, and the resources have also been shared with you for your learning. We thank all the participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you tomorrow, that is the 23rd of June at 6 p.m. for our 5th and final day of this certification course by our panel of experts. We are grateful if you're watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join us to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.